Welcome to the Creativity Theory Podcast. I'm your host and best friend, Cameron Smith. Today, my guest is my good friend and brother in Christ, Kenny Mylod. We've been friends for pretty much my whole entire life. Before we get into the antics, gotta, of course, read an ad. Okay. So, today's podcast is brought to you by Boar's Head Roast Beef. So here's the ad. Delicious is just the beginning of our eclectic variety of Boar's Head beef products. Tender and flavorful with natural juices locked in. Boar's Head brings you everything from corned beef to pastrami to a seasoned filet, all of which are perfect for piling high on sandwiches. Boar's Head meats are enjoyed by millions. Here's what people are saying. Nancy says, throughout my childhood, my mom packed Boar's Head sandwiches in my lunchbox. Now I am creating wonderful memories for my family by serving the same delicious Boar's Head sandwiches. It's a tradition built with love. Ryan says, Boar's Head meats are the bomb. I've been eating them since I was a teenager. I love the roast beef and Cajun turkey. All of them, actually. And their cheeses are equally good, especially pepper jack and sharp cheddar. Huge fan. And Jess says, we're a Boar's Head household. Although I do all my grocery shopping for the family and all the cooking, yet don't eat meat, I still buy the best for my family. All right, let's get into
Cameron, you're making me hungry already. Well, while we're still in the ad part, do you think... You know, ads are typically so people will buy their product and all that, but I've never had a platform to say something back to the company, and this has been eating at me for a few years, so I don't really have anything to read. I'll pretend, though. Dear Little Bites Muffins, historically, 4 muffins come to a pack. One time I got 6. 5 seems like it could be a machine accident. 6 is just plumb wild, and to this day, I don't know what's going on with it, so I just want to thank Little Bites Muffins for the 2 extra muffins when I should have only gotten 4.
plumb wild.
What the fuck? I don't... Off the cuff, but...
Well,
I'm sure they'll see it. I mean...
Did you think that out beforehand, or
I'll say it to people from time to time anyway. Like, just I feel like it's important to know. Have you ever had like a factory error in like a bag of chips, or they gave me something different? Yeah,
no, I believe that happened to you.
It happened to me
in real life. But the thing is, did you plan the word plumb wild?
Yeah, well, I think we're probably gonna go off track already, but I think it just more speaks to where I'm at now with how I say things, you know. We can get right into a first topic. Cameron, I'm going to interview you for a second.
Go for it.
As long as I've known you, you know, and I've heard other podcasts where you talk about, at this age, I was really into this. At this age, I was really into this. Like, what right now would you say is kind of like influencing? What's your current Tim and Eric, for lack of a better word? Is there anything in that regard?
See, this is where it's gotten kind of weird because I can distinctly see this arc of... you know, I think all sorts of shit that you'd probably be familiar with when we were like growing up. So Kenny and I met in middle school, and then we were like really close friends through middle school, high school, and continue to be to this day. So Kenny knows me really well, and he's made a lot of videos with me. Like, he was like my main video making partner through middle school and high school. So yeah, this is that's our background together before, just so the viewers know.
Yeah.
So
don't you know this?
Yeah. So you know all about just like the variety of like comedy video influences in terms of like John LaJoie and Flight of the Conchords and Tenacious D. I know you got me into Tenacious D and Eastbound and Down, like Danny McBride, like and then I'd say I got really heavily into and focused on like Tim and Eric for a good portion of time, and then into college at some point I got really into David Lynch, and then that really kind of blew the top off in terms of openness and interest in creativity. And I think a lot of my main influences now are no longer, or like my current main influences aren't really creative. Like, I still really love David Lynch, and I still love like Louis C.K. is a major comedy influence for me. And but I think a lot of my influences now are kind of these more like philosophical types,
right?
Like Jordan Peterson or like Ian McGilchrist stuff. Like I really like a lot of these voices that are talking about the nature of reality and consciousness and trying to tackle like subjects like God and stuff. And then kind of just keeping the rest of my more like art specific influences like they're there for sure, but for some reason the thing that's gripping my attention the most is this kind of material.
I think the reason I ask it like that too is I think Eastbound and Down helped me think of it of, say, at the time when your Danny McBride peak a few years ago, like everything he's great is great. I love everything he says. So you find yourself like, well, I kind of say similar things to him. I joke around like he does just because it's fresh. And I think this is a long-winded way of telling you where Plum Wild came from because that might be my... it's one of my current influences. I've shown you prank calls in the past that I feel like you would think you'd grow out of that at 13, but I found a guy who a few years ago with my brother who completely just changed the way I even like approached like talking to people and joking. It's people are so built into their rhythms. You go into a gas station, I'm great, how are you? I'm fine. Someone says, how are you? And I say, sensational. You know, it's going to stop you. It's going to catch your attention. A lot of that's where a lot of Buck Wild, Plum Wild, like like anything that can be a little different, you know? So
there's wait, I kind of missed the specific influence there.
I didn't say. Well, I know I've reached. I'm sorry. Hang on. This is a buffer part. I'm still a little nervous and new.
It's okay, dude.
I fell into a prank caller a few years back, Longmont Potion Castle, and for like 30 years, all he does is just make ridiculous phone calls to people. And that alone doesn't sound very interesting, but until you hear it and you hear the way he talks to people, it's almost like a craft or an art in itself. He's masterful at keeping people on the phone and keeping like everyone's instinct. I'm sure you get spam calls. I just swear at them. I just yell at them. It's like, yeah, they know that. They're used to that move. If I can keep you on the phone for 19 minutes, having you so confused or whatever, using the craziest terminology I can or what I've heard, then that's more fun. And I don't get those calls anymore. It's a perfect strategy.
That's what I like. That's what I really enjoyed about. I'm sure you've heard a handful of like the Tim and Eric prank calls. It's just them on their own.
Right.
Like there's the one with Tim calling this person about the human growth hormone. It's just like, it's more of a subtle kind of ridiculous kind of thing to where people cannot be aware on the other end that there's a prank call because it's this kind of subtle kind of way. It's like, this could be just like a weird person talking to me right now, and I gotta talk to him.
Well, because it requires effort on whoever's listening too. Like I just swear at him. It's like, yeah, sure, a guy was mean to me and I hung up. You're not even going to think about it. But you're going to be like, a guy was on the phone with me for 11 minutes talking about his son Spray's birthday party, the Tim and Eric one, to speak of that. And it's like, yeah, that's so much funny. You're going to get way more miles out of that than just being mean to somebody, you know, or like, and I do it for me too. I do jokes all by myself. I was reading American Psycho lately and then completely home alone walking around my kitchen. I retrieved my large mug out of the cat doing an American Psycho like dialogue just for no one but me. I was outside one day and I look up in the sky and I see a plane, and for no reason I was like doing a bit of someone who had never seen a plane before for no one else. I don't know why I see a plane up. I'm like, what the fuck is that thing? Like overreacting to like, imagine somebody who had never seen a plane just for me. I enjoy it. That's how I get through life, man. It's like, I don't know. Yeah. I'm like, cause again, I watch you and all your stuff and I like get so nostalgic for making videos, and I'm sure we'll get into our past of that too. And it's really just my own doing of not being ambitious enough to drive 45 minutes to come hang out with you, but the ideas never stop. Like, that would be such a funny sketch. I'm gonna put that down and let it die in my phone notes for 4 years, you know? Like, but no, I definitely I feel like that's probably gonna make a good bit of this conversation, is this shared nostalgia for that time in space where we were just constantly pumping shit out, constantly having these conversations, like and sharing ideas. And I mean, I'm just thinking about like we were talking about the Whitby Essentials on the phone the other day, and just thinking about just the process of like, it's just friends hanging out. It's not like, hey, come over, we're gonna make stuff. It's just like, we're gonna hang out, but we tend to make stuff when we're hanging out. And whoever, it was me, you, I think Grant, Michael Whitby, we're just in the room. And it's like, who's there for shooting it? Sure. But then also, who's there when I'm editing it? We're doing the voiceover. It's like, you're there, and then you're throwing out these ideas, and I'm like making the graphics with you. And now it's like, I do everything, all that stuff, I do it by myself, like alone in a room. And like, I miss that. I miss like being, the collaboration.
But it being the circumstances of like, it's young kids. We don't have a job.
Nothing to do.
We don't have bills to pay. We don't have the stresses of life, so we can afford to hang out aimlessly for hours.
Right.
And just let the creativity naturally flow. It's insane how like productive we were by accident.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And it's like, I think it's no different than what a lot of people do growing up, and especially the ideas. And even now, like when you work with people, how many times have you heard like, man, they should make a movie about this place? What if they made a show about where we work? We're the characters. Like the different, everyone has those thoughts and everyone's stuff is funny to them. But the difference between growing up is like, let's do it. Why not? Let's do it. You know? But and it wasn't like smartphone days where we put it right on YouTube. It was very, I heard on other podcasts you were talking about your DVD library, which is what I borrowed and watched all that. And that's how I got into you, hanging out with you and making videos. But it's like, yeah, why not? We'll film it. We'll throw it up. And I'm sure you show me a lot of that stuff now. And I can't believe what I thought was funny then. You know what I mean? I'm so different now. I'll probably watch this podcast in a few weeks and be like, man, the nerve of that guy to think he knows anything. I'm so different now, you know? Like,
Plum Wild. That wasn't funny at all.
I almost don't want to, like, because I'm sure I've heard that somewhere too. So I don't want it to be like Cameron and Kenny's Plum Wild podcast coined, you know? Like, that was my point of that whole aimless speech. I'm sure I absorbed that somewhere and stuff I heard. And that's just kind of how I talk now. Like,
yeah. So we can talk about just the kind of the origins and like kind of go through this, not like go over every single thing, but I feel like there's good moments and productions to talk about. Like, so you and I met on the bus in middle school, and at some point me making videos came up in conversation, and I at the time I didn't put anything on the internet. I just was making these direct to DVD shows for me and maybe my tight little circle.
Sure, because this would have been like 2007 or 8. So I mean, YouTube was around, but it wasn't like we need to put this on YouTube and make views.
Maybe
it was
2006.
Really for sure. When you start, it was 2006 or 7 when I got involved, and you had been at it a while before me. So, but I want to preface all of it by saying, like, especially to the people who know you, like now through the comedy scene, through your music, and even people have been asking you too, like, where did this come from? Where's your origin? I feel like I'm the secret origin, like the key, like the tone master, if that makes sense. It's like, because even when I watched this podcast, I could be on here for many episodes giving everyone the secret origin of Cameron Smith. What he was waiting to unleash on the Wilmington comedy scene and what he was like, how this came to be, like the prequel movie or whatever. But but you didn't strike me as off at all. Like you rode the bus with me because you lived a house away or like a street away, I think. And you minded your own business just like us. We were just being kids, and there were a lot older kids too. So when we're in 6th, 7th grade, it's high schoolers run it, you know? And then just one day you let your personality slip a little bit where like you just did a goofy voice out of nowhere. And that's what made me like pay attention to you a little more. I was like, oh, okay, he's silly too. He's not the quiet look out the window kid. And then I think it's, somehow Making Movies came up and you said, well, I have a bunch of DVDs and I'll go home and watch them. And then just saw what you had been up to for the past like year, maybe 2 years or something. And I was like, that's fun. You're like, well, you can come over and make videos with me. And just as it is now, like, this is a funny idea. Let's do that. Let's film it. Let's do South Park voices or Family Guy voices for 19 minutes and up call it a video and see we did good. But it transformed, absolutely, through the rest of middle school to high school to now to you outgrowing me and moving on. You know?
So I gave Kenny at the time, like I said, I was only making these direct to DVD things. It was called the Muchachas Hunter. I talked about it a little bit with Wills, but I think I made 30 episodes on directed, and I had only probably made like maybe 15 by the time I gave. So, and I've never let anyone borrow. I only had one copy of these DVDs, and they were in like a CD holder.
Right, and the DVDs had just Sharpie written on what the episode was called. It was real, basic.
So I lent him the case. I never lent anyone the case before. And did you watch?
I watched every single one of them. I bombed through all of them. I probably saw some of them multiple times. Like, a kid rewatches stuff, and I was like, and I started hanging out with you at that point. So I probably watched them all and then started hanging out with you more, and then through contacts was like, let me go back and watch that old one again. And I know we took it real seriously, like, well, let's reference the thing we did in the other video, let's make it our ongoing thing. And that was just the seeds of that.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know. I didn't have anything to say there.
It's okay. Well, I will just say, like, just compared to, right, I was there at the beginning when there was just the DVDs, and even more strict than that. It was like a handy camcorder. You could probably speak to the brand and all more than me, but it was like, I'm going to film it. Every scene has to be in order. I can't go out of that. We're 11 or 12. There was no editing involved of any kind.
That's an important point to think of. So, there was no editing for these years. And so in shooting it on these little DVD-R handy cams, the take would start when we would hit record and it would stop when we hit record again.
There was no cut that out.
Right.
That's in there.
The best we could do is we could only delete the last take we did. We could start over.
Yeah.
Like we do a take. Oh, that one's not good.
Right.
Or delete that and we'll just do it again. But I don't think we could go back.
No, we couldn't. And the way I found that out was because I just, being silly, recorded something for you to see. And then when you found out, got a little chaffed at it. You're like, I can only delete the last thing recorded. And I obviously am going to delete that stupid shit you filmed. So whatever we have before that has to stay in. So we have to make that work now, you know, and that was kind of an early formative way of making videos, of being like, you know, like, this is our house and this is what we're going to build it with these pieces. You know what I mean? If we mess something up, that's how it goes. That's what we're in, you know?
Yeah. It's a very meticulous process.
Right. But it was fun though. I don't know, like, when to throw certain points out, but even like going to the doctor as a kid or meeting a teacher, it's like, what do you do? It's like, I make videos with my friends. Like, what do you do in your free time? Like, play sports, you do this? I was like, no, I just make videos with my friends. And it always got a big reaction. Like, that's great. That's very interesting. That's great. That's creative, you know? Now, I don't recommend showing any of them to anyone.
Yeah. I feel like now it's not really that crazy of a thing. Most people do that. No,
I feel like hearing the thing about only deleting the last thing is wild, like, especially like, because again, we're not that much older than like in the grand scheme of things, you know, and like your 20s isn't very old, but to see like, man, it would be so great 10 years ago even to have some of the stuff that was now, you know, like,
yeah.
But I guess like the difference is if it was like it was when we were kids, then it wouldn't have been nearly as cool or interesting to anyone else, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, everybody makes a dumb video, everybody makes sketches, you know, it's saturated, but
absolutely. I mean, I feel like kind of got lucky in terms of it being a unique thing.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if I were doing the same thing in high school now, I mean, it would just be like, so is like 50% of the kids here. Right. They all got TikToks and they're making videos.
But the difference is we would talk about like, this would be so cool if one day we could do this for a living, if we could make videos and make money. But it was never like, when I hear people talk about it now, like the algorithm and YouTube and I got to be here and compare it to, it kind of goes back to me pretending like I don't know what planes are. Like I was having fun with my friends. I was having fun with myself. And if other people don't like it, like, and of course you want them to do well, but I never even heard you. I don't think I ever heard you once complain about a video not being very popular. Like, if anything, it was like, oh man, for the amount of effort this is what it is. I've never heard you complain about a video you worked hard on not doing well. I have heard you complain about videos you have not worked hard on doing too well. Compared to other videos, like I can throw that out and that's going to take off. But the thing I worked for 2 weeks on with all my friends and coordinated schedules and it has 90 views now after a month, you know, like, but still, you know, it's still funny to me when I go back and watch it. And it's at the point now where it's not all fresh to me anymore, where I'm like, oh, I remember exactly that. I watched some videos and I was like, did I say that? Did Cameron just say that? Like, what is this?
Yeah. Yeah. So the video that, I mean, I'm sure there's a number of examples, but the quintessential example is the fucking Rebecca Black interview that I made.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, in 2011, and you were around when I
was around. I didn't have any part of that one though. You and made it and then showed me. I think that was the most.
I think Priscilla's the only other person that has like a voice in it. But yeah, I know at least the two of you were around. That might have been it. Who was specifically around when we made it? But it was like this. Did you stare at the camera? It was like this, you know, some videos we like put effort into and like we like cared about and we were like really enjoying the process of making it and we like put serious time and effort into them. And then others were just like, we're just fuck around, let's make something in 30 minutes. And it's this, and so this was this like YouTube poop style video for when Rebecca Black, the Friday girl, was blowing up and it was like a thing.
It was everywhere.
Yeah. And I just took our Good Morning America interview and I just cut it up really stupid and put some, you know, dumb jokes over it. And the views kept climbing. Like within a day, it was like 10,000 and then it was like 100,000 later that week. And then it was 1 million. And now it's like 3 million something now.
I'll look at it from time to time and I sort the comments by most recent just to see like what are people now saying about this video and why, you know, but it's fun.
But yeah, that video is the reason I had an influx of subscribers on the main channel. And then like the Man on the Streets we were releasing at that time were getting engaged with and whatever other videos, they were just getting commented on and viewed more. Like rather than the video the average views of the videos being around like 100, 200, it started being like 1,000, 2,000. And it was frustrating. That's like even when I made that video, I didn't like it.
Yeah, there was another video. could be wrong, but you just made a silly, I hate video. Cody and our friend Cody are going to say video things we hate. And then at one point you just say, I hate anyone who likes my Rebecca Black video.
Oh, yeah.
Like making videos just to weed people out. Like I'm making this video just to see who responds to it. So I know not to respect them in the future.
Yeah.
Oh, wild. I'm trying to think of another like phase we could enter, you know, because I feel like we could get into Weekend Movie for a little bit in that same conversation, because I could tell you exactly. I was in New York visiting family, and you called me and said, "Hey, we got a 3-day weekend coming up. What if we just made a movie, a short film?" I think you may have even said short film at the time, and it got bigger, or you may have said
no. So I knew it was going to be a feature going into it, and the influence was the FilmCow guys, like the Charlie the Unicorn people.
Yeah.
They made this movie. They made in a day called Nick, the feature film.
Okay.
And I just like bought. It was like direct to DVD. I bought the DVD and watched it. I feel like I watched it with someone.
I don't think it was me.
I don't think it was.
Well, then it wasn't anyone else. Yeah, it wasn't me. But.
And I just had the idea of like, damn, like if they can do this in a day, imagine what we could just do in like one long weekend.
Yeah.
And that came together really well. Like we were just constantly shooting for like 3 or 4 days straight. And I immediately got into the edit, and within a week had it done and then released it. And that was one of those things we put effort into. It was really fun, and it's actually got quite a bit of attention for something that's not like connected to something else popular. You know, like it's got like 30,000 like plus views.
Yeah. But for me, it's like a true testament of like kind of the transitionary period of what you said before about we are kids, we have nothing to do, and we have all the time in the world, to becoming like, well, we're, you know, nearing the end of high school, we have jobs, it's harder to get people. But that movie was great because it was like, if you look at it, there's so many people we made. Like if you look at all the videos we made, it's like we got a good number of them to be in that movie.
Yeah,
like all in a short span of time. It was just kind of one of those lightning in a bottle. Everything worked out, it came together well.
Yeah,
like
it was definitely like if you were a fan of like the videos at large and like just the community around them, it really was kind of like that movie was like a gift.
Yeah, and I never thought of it that way until just now. You're right, it is kind of like our big anniversary movie of like, hey, we make all these silly sketches and here's one big feature we all threw together one weekend. But
and it was very meta, you know, it's like we're all playing ourselves, and it's about me making videos and having like a relationship with it, and it's like getting to me, and then I turn out to be a fucking serial killer.
I showed it to, I mean, we made so many videos, I showed it to my family and stuff who liked the videos we do, and my younger brother was like in tears because you kill me in the video, even though we've made so many videos where we die and silly stuff happens. But even then I was like, what a powerful piece of cinema we have crafted here to invoke tears out of a young boy whose family, like, oh man,
it's not real.
Yeah. Does Borzed really have all those products you listed? Because I've been thinking about it ever since we started, and I know they do a lot of deli meats. Did you say cheeses too?
Yeah, they have cheeses. They have pickles.
Moving on. No, I'm just kidding.
Damn it, you threw me off.
Yeah, I thought it would be funny. I will tell you, since maybe it's a little bit of neurosis or paranoia or always thinking about the future, I knew you did these ads, and I thought, I'm just going to keep arbitrarily bringing the ad up throughout. Like, he's really sold me on it, so that might keep coming up. Well, so I don't want to throw you again in the future.
Well, just so you know, I didn't write a single one of those words. I just pulled them off the website.
Well, I knew I wanted to do the Little Bites thing, and I thought about bringing a piece of paper just for a prop, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I got a good transition. How do you think this podcast is going comparatively to other podcasts at this point of the podcast?
I think it's going good.
Good.
I feel like the last 3 I wasn't a very good host on, so I'm hoping to just at least do better than that.
I was given the advice, just pretend like you're talking to a friend, so I've been trying to do that the whole time I've been here. I'm just kidding. You're my friend already. I don't need to pretend. I like them. You want to talk about the differences of you and me? How I'll just say things with the straightest of faces. I'm just kidding.
I want to talk about a lesser known video. That's one of my personal favorite. I want to ask you what like your favorite ones are.
Okay.
Either like just the product or the making of it, like fun memories to share or something like that. But one particular one that I love is God Hates Soulja Boy.
Right. I do remember. I've watched it because there are to every few, like I don't watch them all every day, like, you know, reliving my old high school days or anything, but there will be time to time where I'll get into watching one and it'll just lead to me rewatching one. And that's one I probably watched a year or two ago. And then just like laughing at it, but still just like, what were we doing? Yeah. What were we thinking back then? Like, why did we, like, who was this for even?
Right. And I think that was the best way to make things.
Yeah, I agree.
I miss that, like, true not giving a fuck about, like, it was just like, we're entertaining ourselves, and if you like it, then awesome. And I feel like so much more people responded to that. So much more people liked it when it was like that.
Well, this will lead more into other favorite videos I have, but I want to answer the question first about God Hates Soulja Boy. Like, I have no memory of, like, hey, let's do that. I remember it happening, and I remember the joke involved, and I'm like, I don't know what led to it. I don't know what it is. I just remember the most, like, the joke is clear, but I think we think we're okay because we're like, no, we didn't say anything bad. It's like, but now that I'm older and smarter and have more of a concept of the world, I was like, a lot of the stuff we did is really bad. There's no excuses for it, and you can make, like, a 13-year-old rationalization. But
well, yeah, that was another.
Was there something specific about that video? Like,
no,
no.
Yeah. I think it was just a really, like, stupid, silly video that, to me, it's one of those ones that still holds up. Like,
I think so.
To me,
yeah.
I mean, my only qualm with it is technical. It's like, I wish I would have recorded your voice better. I think it was like I had the mic right by me, and then, like, you were off to the side.
Yeah,
the audio
but you could be saying the same thing about this podcast. It might be an innate.
This is at least an improvement.
Bad feature of me, you know. Like,
I mean, you have to be like back here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't know, but a lot of it was just like kicking out the cobweb. Like, we could film 10 videos, and if one of them's kind of funny, I'm happy. You know. I mean, I'm sure it's the same with your stand up and all too. It's like, well, I'm not going to know until I go do it. I might go up there and bomb over and over, but, like, I got one nugget out of it, and that's going to, like, seed the next thing I do and make it even bigger and better.
Yeah.
If I can just pick out a video, one I always think about is the babysitter. Talk about an idea completely getting away from you, and it was nothing special. No other day, like, we'll make a video like we always do, because that's what we do. And we had Andrew coming over, and I think I definitely had the premise, and it was just so simple in my head where I was like, wouldn't it be funny if if your mom got a babysitter for us? Like, I think I'm 17, you're 16, or I'm 18 and you're 17. You're like, what if your mom hired, like, a 14-year-old babysitter? Like, oh, the babysitter's on her way, and then you and me are just, like, kind of the straight men reacting like, what do you mean you got us a and then all the comedy coming from just babysitter tropes, completely not what that video's about by the end of it. Like, like one little thing. Yeah. I
mean, it was just kind of this goofy thing with, like, kind of leaning on that just concept on itself of, like, babysitter tropes with a 16, 17-year-old. But when Andrew shows up as the Derrick, I mean, that's when the thing really unfolds.
Right. Which started as, like, a nothing idea of, like, oh, well, what's the thing? Babysitters have their boyfriend over. That's what they do. So let's have this babysitter have her boyfriend. Andrew can play the boyfriend. And then the second he hit the scene, it was like, whatever we thought this video was about anymore. This is a video about this character we've made up. And then we make sequel videos about him too.
It just comes in driving backwards.
It's just so funny. Like, playing a part, because it's like, oh, you're playing the part of, like, the typical Chad, which wasn't a term back. Actually, that's a good point too, because we decided to name him, and we're like, what can we name this guy? What's, like, the typical like dickhead boyfriend name, you know? And, like, now it'd be so easy to be like, oh, everyone says Chad, you know, Chad would have been the one. But back then we were just spitballing. We're like, Derrick, the Derrick. So that's the Derrick. The Derrick was born. And
then also just his tattoos.
Like, just drawn on. But I've rewatched those too. Oh man, I'd recommend, you could rewatch that anytime. But just, he sells it so well.
Andrew was like just a powerhouse of, like, a comic actor. He was fucking, when you gave him something good, he would fucking bring it.
Well, I realized it early on too, and having fun with it. I probably grappled a little bit with, like, oh, I'll come up with a joke, but then, like, I'll give it to Andrew for him to say, and I'm like, well, it's my joke. I want to be the one saying it. But that didn't last long. Like, even to this day, it's like, oh, it would be so much funnier coming from him. I wouldn't be able to deliver it like that. So it's like, I like being in the videos and watching myself younger, like a time capsule, but it was never any sense of, like, I could do this for real. I could be a thespian, an actor, you know? It's like, I really just like coming up with the jokes, and I don't care who says them, you know? I knew I was there. I know if it's mine or not, you know? Like,
I can think of, like, moments where sometimes there were things that, like, friends I was making videos would suggest that, like, it was a really horrible fucked up line, and they're like, I cannot be seen saying it. You can say it though. And like, an example would be Dead Ma with Cody, when I'm like waking him up, hitting him with the pillow. I'm like, you know, put on your best goddamn pair of denim shorts. And then so I think this was Cody's line, or like his idea, but he didn't, and I wanted him to say it. But he had to give it to me because, like, my parents can't hear me say that. I was like, put on your best goddamn pair of denim shorts. And then he was like, don't talk about God that way.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck God.
Oh, okay.
Like,
yeah.
So,
That's wild to me hearing him of all people say that, because I always had the view of him of being like,
no, when him
more
and I
interesting.
first, I think as time went on,
he loosened up.
Him and his parents like were really supportive of the videos and were like, do whatever. It's funny. Yeah. But I think at first when we started hanging out, I think either his parents were more strict or he at least had a more had a view that he thought they were more strict.
Right.
I think it might have been a little of both.
Sure.
But yeah, there's also plenty of times of inverse where it's like, you know, especially me being the one like curating the thing. Sure. Like I want people to have funny lines.
Yeah.
And so like if I think of something that's much funnier coming out of like Andrew's mouth than mine, like I want him to say it.
I think a lot of it too is just natural, and it wasn't like, I don't think I ever had a moment of like, oh, well, I wouldn't want to say that, but I want it to be said for someone else. It's more, and I don't think it ever goes away, and I'm sure it's the same for you, just being like a funny guy too, of like when I hear things or I'm watching a movie or TV or listening to other people's conversations, I tend to self-insert like, what would I say in that situation? Yeah. And it's just passive. I can't think of it too. And a lot of the time I think of things in like terms of being a joke or being a sketch or being a thing. Like a buddy of mine was talking about going to jury duty. So all it is just like silliness, like walk in with the People's Court theme playing out of your briefcase and telling the guy like, I'm incurably a jokester. I want to tell you early, like as serious as I can. It's like, I'm afraid that I might be in contempt of court by joking around too much. And you can only imagine what they'd say back. Like, well, if you joke around, we'll bury you. I was like, I think we might have to go that way now, because I don't want to be a bother to anyone, but I don't think I'll be able to control myself being silly. And that's where a lot of that came from. Like I'd hear another scene going on, like you and Cody having a conversation, for example, and then just I think of, it'd be so funny if he said that right there. And then if it's not everything's used, you know, you learn, especially making videos at 11, 12, it's like, well, not all my ideas are great and they're going to stop the world. You know, sometimes you throw something out, you hear silence and you're like, all right, you know, or you just pick your battles of what's worth fighting for.
Yeah. Well, I also think that this is one of the reasons, like you kind of touched on it here, but one of the reasons that I feel like you and I worked really well together is because I think I've always been really good at big picture and like keeping keeping a story interesting and then like assigning characters and like action and the way a story arcs. But you are more like rapid fire machine in terms of like seeing a thing, like a macro thing, and then having all these little micro ideas of like, oh, this would be a funny line, or what if this little thing here. And so like, I don't know, it seemed like you just constantly had this flood of like detail ideas where I was usually just constantly in this flood of like bigger picture.
Sure.
So I just feel like we complemented each other in terms of like the way that we have this impulsive creativity and joke forming.
Because when you put it that way, I think I would definitely struggle more if we were writing a movie and it's like, all right, Kenny, go sit by yourself and then give me an outline. Where's the big picture of the story? I'd have a lot harder time with that. But if you came to me and said like, hey, two guys are in the car and they're driving to the bank together, I'd be like, oh, well, that'd be funny if in response, or if you showed me something, I'd be like, oh, what if he referenced that from earlier? Like that's the kind of thing that makes like, I guess kind of the endorphin rush a little bit. The same when like your joke goes over well, or when someone likes what you had to say, or like, kind of like that pat on the head, but it's like, wow, something I thought of made someone laugh. How can I do that again? You know? And even if I'm the only one that laughs, whatever.
Right.
Something else I wanted to say.
I do another video that comes to mind. It's a series of videos, but there's one in the series in particular, but the Two Grown Men videos, particularly one of my favorite memories of just shooting, and then the product itself is the third one, the Thanksgiving dinner. Holy fuck, dude. Like we had like all the heavy hitters in there.
But we can build up to that one. That's another great example of like, I don't know what you set out to do in the first place, because I wasn't there at all. Like I think it was already edited and finished and you showed it to me and said, Cody and I made this the other night. Yeah.
So it was me and Andrew. We made the first one, and I think it was literally stemmed from just the line in there, "Do I frighten you?"
Okay.
And and him and I were just doing these voices, and then I think we were like kind of lazily, it was really late at night. I feel like we shot that outside stuff at like 2 a.m. And we like, okay, these two characters were I think Mr. Anderson came, you know, from The Matrix. I think that was Andrew's idea. I think maybe both names might have been Andrew's idea. We were trying to think of a second ridiculous one, and Mr. Pikachu came up. And I want to give that to Andrew because I'm pretty sure it was, but I don't know, just and then I don't know that we were making up this dialogue, like, you know, one piece at a time. Like, what do you say now? What do I say? And then I think we just kept trying to say weirder things.
Yeah.
Like I watched it kind of recently. What is it? Andrew responds to something I say where we get like the dates or times confused. He goes, I thought it was take a salamander to divorce court day. Yeah. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's a lot of like our jokes too is just like utter nonsense. Yes. So too, like the ones you'd have me doing the random rants, and it was the same thing. I don't even remember the setup. It's like, and I opened the bag and there's a goddamn cooked salamander in there, and we're both laughing, and it's like, what is the joke? Like that I said a weird thing? Like, but no, it's perfect. Yeah. The second one is where I got involved too, and that's when I played the role of like the guy who doesn't talk, the typical silent one, just weird expressions and all that. Mr. Driver's License. It's very ironic because I'm the least likely to drive anywhere. God, that's why I haven't been around. But yeah, no, but the third one is where it all culminated really with having everyone there at that thought. And again, dude, Andrew, you could just like, I hope we just have an isolated YouTube segment of like Kenny and Cameron reminisce about their old pal Andrew's talent. Like, because you watch that and just like how he chooses to say certain words, like, I'd like to have you for my Thanksgiving dinner. Like it's almost like a song or a rhyme, and I just like can listen to him all day, just go on like that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was just like a natural. He was just like a fucking natural. Like, especially like with the raps too. Like, it was like, I feel like most of us, when we were at least first starting, I know me in particular, like was bad at rapping, like, bad flow, and Andrew was fucking like immediately good at it.
Right.
And yeah, but as far as the acting and fucking Two Grown Men 3, the Thanksgiving dinner, like having Jake play Cousin Timothy's nephew, and just like, I don't know, he was kind of partially the straight man in this weird family, but he was still like
very weird,
very funny and weird, like sassy Jake.
Well, the thing about Jake too is like a lot of it is like work with what you have. If you have a car, you'll probably have a car in your movie, but it's like we knew Jake could make himself cry. So I feel like almost
use that a lot.
Yeah, any video with Jake in it, he might be crying at some point because it's just like, well, I know he can make himself cry. Let's get him to do that, and just him too. But he's another one too. It wasn't like, oh, the camera's on him and here he is. Like in class, one of my funniest thing I've ever heard Jake say was like he would like play the role of a teacher's pet. Like we all knew it was a joke. Everybody would be laughing, and then he would just out of nowhere be like, all right guys, calm down, quiet down, like, and it always got me. Or just like stopping the teacher dead in her top to get you, like, can you move him please, he's distracting me. And I don't know.
He was he was like that to a fucked up degree. Yeah, too. I was like, dude, stop! I don't want to move.
Right? Talk about like, I find like most people like it's just so hard to find someone's like, no, he's not. You could find funny things about like everyone's smart in their own way. I think most people are funny in their own way, and especially when they find what works for them and keeps it going. Because like Jake, that was like I could repeat everything he said in the class I went to after that, and it wouldn't have been funny because it was coming from me. But Jake just had that way of selling it. Like I'm so flustered and bothered right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That's another one to get into is fucking make an awesome show. I know you heard a little bit of that conversation because you just watched the Will's podcast.
I did. I had more to add too, actually, because it was great. I think you were polite and skimmed over it, but I think you did a good job of saying that it was like, all right, you guys are already making your videos, kind of run loose a little bit, have fun. And the thing I wanted to talk about was doing the school news, like the Cougar View, and like, I'm sorry to, talk poorly of every class before us, but I watched it in class and it was the same thing year after year, like people giggling and happy to be on camera, tee-hee, what's for lunch? Tee-hee, what's the weather? And it would just get old. So when we took over, we were like, we already are silly and we're going to make videos. Let's like put our all into it to the point of getting in trouble and getting called to the office and all that.
We couldn't be anchors on there. Every time they try to have like you, me, or Jay on there, that like eventually Ms. Lloyd was just like, you guys can't anchor anymore. Keep doing Man on the Street. That's fine. Right. Just no more announcements.
And awesome
for you
show
guys.
too. But do you know the funny thing about that is as an adult now, I can look back and completely see it from their side. It's like of course we were being silly. We were obnoxious. We treated it like our own variety show hour.
But it was a fucking minute and a half. But the fun thing about the day.
Yeah. But how we handled it was so funny because they came in there and gave a big speech to our class of like, oh, you guys got to tone it down. We needed to be normal. You're being too silly. So I don't know if you remember this.
Remember that speech.
I remember this. They came into our class and told us that we were being, too silly, too rambunctious, and we're going to have to pre-record it every day. The principal gave this speech.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I do remember this.
But here's how we decided to handle it as like, a unified student body. We said, all right, you want normal news? You got boring news. So we went right back to how it's always been. Today for lunch is this. Today the weather is this. To the point where they almost didn't know how to say it. The teacher was like, you guys, you got to put a little more life into it. And we're like, which way do you want it then? Do you want us to have fun and do a good job, or do you want us to just be boring and stupid? But like looking back, we were still 100% in the wrong. They had every right to tell us not to go on there and play these videos that we were making and stuff too. But it was like, all right, well then you're gonna get your old boring school news back. But
well, even an awesome show we had, I think like the 6th episode is like we just kept getting email complaints, and so the 6th one's literally just like, it's called No Offense, and me and Jake are trying to make an episode about how do we not upset people. And I love Miss Warren's in it, and we have her. We're talking about the ideas. I can't remember which idea it is, but we have her just sitting at her desk with her arms like this. She goes, I like the one about this.
Yeah. Which, I don't know if you remember, I was there for that one. I didn't do a lot of Cameron and Jake Awesome show. I did the one about the smoking and the cigarette and teen pregnancy, which I might want to get back to.
And
that
then the email
there's
song.
more of that. The email song, of course, we did. But I wasn't on camera, but I was there for the No Offense one. And I want to bring that up because that was right after the cigarette one. It was everything you said to Wills. It was, you know, a kid's trying to buy a cigarette. Hey, no smoking in school. And then you two pop up on screen and give a very detailed speech about teen pregnancy. So when we showed it, he was like, I remember his exact words was like, guys, you're talking about something serious like smoking. And then you don't want to alienate anyone by telling them that they shouldn't have babies in high school. And we were like, everything you're saying makes sense. So, but again, we overreacted, and the next episode's like, fine, you're all going to get so offended. Let's make the No Offense episode.
Well, I think emails was next, and then
was it? Okay, you're probably right.
Or no, it was okay. There was 2 episodes.
Sure.
So the lightsaber one is episode 4.
Right.
Emails is number 5.
Okay.
And then Bags with Miss Harrington and Burby and Jervy. That's 6. That's one of my favorites.
That caused a little trouble too. I don't know.
I think some teacher specifically emailed about the motion I did towards Miss Harrington, were like as if I was going to fight her because she like dropped my bag, and I just did that, and they emailed about that specific. So that was when I think I was like, all right, I've had enough of these fucking emails, and I was like, Jake, we're going to do this episode. And so 7 is that No Offense one.
Yeah, but I remember doing the No Offense together because that was our response. Like, you're all going to get so offended. We'll do an episode about how everyone's offended about everything. And I remember showing it to our broadcasting teacher, and then she was like, of course, no, you're not going to put this one. We never aired that one.
Yeah.
She's like, you were literally ridiculing the teachers to their faces who were being mean to you. But that teacher's one was great too. And I do remember that specific moment because it took like directing from your part to get her to that level of weird. She's like, oh, I like the one about, what was it, manners? Like, I like the one about happiness or whatever. Yeah. And then I like the one about, he's like, can you do a little more like dry? And then to the point where you had her just straight up, I would like the one about happiness. Yeah, like that's how we joke around here. Yeah. Oh man.
I like the one about the song about happiness.
She was great. I do remember the line too. It was just like, what if we do an episode about manners, about good manners? Like, I don't know, Cameron, some people don't know how to manners. They might be offended. Just like, not just one thing after another. Yeah.
And then right after that one, episode 8, that's Andrew as the attorney. And Ms. Lloyd watched that one. She said, we can't air this. He looks obviously high.
Oh, really? Yeah, I don't even remember that part. But did that one air, do you think?
No, I don't
did
think
it not?
So, no.
That's one of my favorites too. It's my money and I need it now. You could probably do a compilation of every kid who had no interest in being on, but you got them anyway. Like, I could care less, or or just like, because even in the attorney video, you're like, "What do you think about attorneys?" To a random kid, I don't know, and brushes you off or whatever.
Yes.
But
yeah. The use. I mean, like, you know, Man on the Street is completely dependent on using anyone at random that's in the hall, but like the way that we use them in Awesome Show, like the Rascal Flats episode where we just had like random kids in the hall, like, thanks Rascal on 100 years. That's, dude, there's so many really good Awesome shows.
One thing about that, I don't know if you remember this, you went to print a picture out of Rascal Flats, and while you were gone, Jake had drawn one on the board, and the second you saw it, you're like, that's what we're keeping. And threw it away.
It was so funny how accurate like his drawing was. Or, like, just how much like you saw the drawing, you're like, okay, that is Rascal Flats.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah. And the credits, everyone's Rascal Flats, 2 Rascal Flats. His videos hold up.
Yeah.
Maybe they should keep playing them.
Oh like my God. Yeah, they should definitely, I should be getting syndicated payments for
right. I wonder if there is another you roaming around out there, of anyone who's approached the same level of, I'm going to take over the school news. My videos are what's going to reign. Yeah. I'll bring up another one too. Our senior year in broadcasting, we had a competition with other schools where I don't even remember the premise. Make some video. And then it got a little heated between our school and another school. And the thing that just speaks, and it's kind of how I think of you.
Was it the kangaroo thing?
Yeah, it was the kangaroo, like the gas station thing. And it just got online and Facebooky, and all the kids from different schools started talking like smack to each other. But I just remember you having like hundreds of videos under your belt at that point, just messages. I got an idea, school. Let's have another video competition. Your entire school versus me. And honestly, even to this day, I get kind of goosebumpy thinking about it, where I was like, they don't know what they're asking. Like, even if like then you were to do it, I was like, hundreds of kids pulling together and make a video. I was like, I trust Cameron and his ability and his like brain way more than
I don't even remember.
I bet you don't even remember. Threatening an entire high school is like your entire school versus me. Let's see who makes the better video. Like,
oh wow.
Excuse me. But it just speaks to your like ambition. Like even then you had it. You know what I mean? I've never known you to like have a few like, oh, I just don't feel like doing it. You know, I'm just gonna layer. What if it's not good? You're like, I'm gonna do it anyway. Shit,
I feel like I was more. I think about that a lot, especially watching Rise to Stand Up is the thing that gives me kind of this scary view into that. Like it's on one hand, it makes me go, oh, I fucking hate that version of me.
Right.
I feel so like the way I see it now is like I'm just so unaware of how like arrogant I am. Right. But then on the other hand, I'm like, God, I wish I had that level of confidence and that viciousness of that drive. Like I wish I wasn't so fucking self-conscious and introspective because probably I would be doing more. I'd probably be more successful if I was less aware.
I don't know. I mean, you can drive yourself crazy playing what if games though, you know, because it's like,
one thing's for sure is if I was still that guy, I wouldn't be playing those what if games.
Right. Yeah, that's true. But I don't know. I said it to you off camera, but I feel like it's a good time to say it on camera too. Like I think this podcast might be one of the most excited things I've seen come out of you for a while. Because even if I'm not part of it, you always keep me up to date on what's going on. But after watching, I think the first episode, but definitely by the second, when I saw like what this was going to be and the layout, I was like, this is the side of Cameron I've always wanted everyone to see. You know, like when you're on stage, you're making a video, like clearly you have like an agenda, or you're going to be silly, you're going to goof around. And that's how a lot of people remember you from school. Like, Cameron's crazy, you know, he's making all these videos, he's out of control. And I remember saying it to somebody one time. I was like, do you think I would hang out with him all the time if he was like that 100% of the time? I was like, no, because the second he relaxes like any human, he's smart, he's got things to say, he's introspective, you know, he wants to better himself. So it's, and this is the side I think you're finally like showing to people, you know, which I feel like is better for you than anyone else. Like,
it's something I feel like I've kind of known for a long time, but just never, I don't know. I had so many reasons in my head to not show this side of me publicly and in the long form. But it does make a lot of sense. Like it's always been this thing where, I mean, there's plenty of people that enjoy what my the fucked up crazy shit on its own. They don't need to know me. They just like it.
Yeah, right.
But it seems like most people respond the best to it when they also have this knowing and understanding of this side of me, because it makes that stuff so much more interesting, because it's like, oh, this is like that much of an act.
Right,
exactly. This is that far removed from that person.
Right.
Because I think, if you look at it as like, oh, that's actually who he is. Well, that's just a fucking crazy person.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you look at like, oh, that's a performance.
Right,
like,
exactly.
That's interesting.
Yeah, sure. And because it's like you're aware and you're paying attention to people, and that's where a lot of the comedy and all comes from. And I feel like that's what like my biggest like gripe with like the world now and like my anger comes from is when like a big argument with somebody just clearly based off of two people like who aren't hearing what the other one's saying. You know what I mean? I was like, just open your eyes and listen a little more. Like that person is saying something, and I feel like you're getting hot because you're both arguing different things. You know what I mean? I was like, I feel like this podcast, even at like you're like looking at me right now, and I can tell you're listening to every word I say. I was like, it really kind of channels that like we have a dedicated space to listen to what you're saying. I think will be. I feel like I just rambled for like 90 seconds without making a point, but that's kind of how I live my life.
Off the rails. But we kind of mulled over the email.
That's right. Yeah. Show. Well, let me just say real quick. I'm like already thinking ahead of being like the chapters of this, and it's like Kenny and Cameron talk about this, and then later they go back to what they were talking about earlier. I was worried about it being too sporadic, but the emails one, it was like at the time it wasn't any different than anything else, but it's the only thing you've ever come back to me with years later and was like, I think we should do this again. We're going to do this in front of people. We're having like a comedy show, and I was like, wow, I have to like put myself in the head of my
perform that live.
Right. Because most stuff it's like a family photo or you know like a home video, you know what I mean? It's like, wow, I was crazy back then.
That wasn't even my idea to do that.
No, it wasn't.
That was at Cucalorus. It was Johnny Gray asked me, he's like, hey, I'll do my Johnny Gray impression again.
Okay.
Hey, I think it'd be pretty cool if you and Kenny, I think you could get him to...
You called me about that. I was like baffled because we've done so much in the past, and that's just like one jokey, like not even like especially video, but you're like, my friend Johnny really loves this video and I think we should do it. I was like, you want me to go up there and live sing in front of a bunch of people at the Cucalorus Film Festival about a song we wrote about emails that'll last all of like 30 seconds? Like,
right.
okay, yeah, sure, whatever you need, brother. Like,
oh my god.
But it shows too, because like a lot of the people you meet now like respond differently to different stuff you've done in the past too. Like, I really like the conversation you have with Wills too, because you were talking about like the trouble we would get into and stuff like that, and about how you were like, well, and he might have said it where it was like, oh, well, even back then you found the people that were going to be against you and you found the people that had your back. And I was like, I like that outside perspectives can hear about like the past, because I have too much emotional attachment and nostalgia for everything. So I was like, yeah, that is a good way of putting it. That is kind of what was going on, is like, even then you were finding your core audience, and here are the people that aren't going to care, and who cares, I'm here for you. But I don't know. I would walk around with like a sense of like I'm gonna get in trouble all the time. Like I don't know, like it didn't seem to bother you as much. But I remember even when you casually said like, oh yeah, we were 2 a.m. walking around filming this video, and I was like, yeah, but that comes with, I'm standing outside the bank at 2 a.m. I know people are like, what are we doing here? Are we gonna get in trouble? I'm 15, Like,
oh yeah. I mean, I feel like growing up in Southport was a really like lucky circumstance for that kind of thing. Because one, it's like, we're not in danger being kids out that late. There's literally no one out.
Right. I don't think we ever ran into anyone out filming videos at that hour.
You go like, downtown Southport past fucking, I don't know, 8 p.m.
Yeah. City that always sleeps.
Certainly not 10 p.m.
God, no. But yeah, no, I did way more walking then than I ever did now too, just with you, just because that's what we would do. Just walk, BS, think of a video, film a video.
Yeah. Oh, you're fine. I'm only really angry that you're drinking water.
I thought it would make for a better voice.
Okay. Well, I think the only other thing I'm sure
there's any number of directions we could go,
Yeah.
I didn't know.
You were really only in the last episode, but minimum wage was another.
Minimum wage has become like a fan favorite of like friends of mine who weren't involved, like, because I have like a lot of friends I have now or people I associate with, like know the videos, know the stuff we used to do and stuff. But like that one has almost like a cult following with my friends who have asked me like, can I get a DVD of that? Can I get that? I love minimum wage. And another reason I like it too is because I wasn't a part of it until the end too, so it's a lot easier for me to enjoy it just as a fan without having to like watch myself. I probably won't watch this, to be honest, and I'll watch every other episode. Like, I was there, I don't need to listen to me. But yeah, no, minimum wage it felt like, again, there was probably a lot more effort behind the scenes than I know about, but it was like another one. I was like, you just got some of the funniest guys all in one place. And even though like it may seem like nothing's really going on, it was like the most quotable lines from it, like the most interesting characters. Rory.
Well, that was what I saw from just like hanging around him. Like they just had this camaraderie in the house that was just entertaining to watch in real life.
Yeah.
And they also like, had some degree of interest and ability to be on camera and were familiar with my stuff. Yeah. Pretty much so, to where like, the idea of pitching that show like wouldn't just be funny. We just made like this mockumentary style thing, capturing like these real but we of course exaggerate them and come up with like ongoing jokes and bits and things. And the way the last episode really like came together, where it was like the first 9 episodes were a whole lot of like nothing with maybe little strings attached, and there were of course lots of funny moments and great things in there, but like the 10th one was really like, oh wow, this is like a really kind of
something going on,
intricate crescendo of a story.
That's when I met some of them, like after watching the show. So for me, it was like again, smaller scale, but you hear about people like, I used to be a fan and then I was on the show. It really did feel like that. I was filming a scene with Rory.
Oh, Rory.
Had never met him before. I walk into the room where we're doing the scene, and just on camera goes, hi, Kenny. And I was so disarmed because I didn't know he knew who I was or knew my name. So like, I've just been watching this guy for 9 episodes be crazy, and now he knows me by name. I feel like I could die right now,
Yeah. Oh man, Rory was so good. It was kind of funny too, because a lot of the guys we were making that show with, I feel like, were not happy about Rory's involvement.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I don't know if it was, I mean, because there's on one hand, I think there might have been like real life personal things of like, we don't want him in our house.
Right. Yeah.
There's that. But then there is, I don't know, maybe this other element of like, they don't want him to steal the show.
I never would have thought of that.
Really the case, but I feel like it could have been a little underlying thing.
Well, now that you say that, I could kind of see that that would be a real worry if somebody was really serious about minimum wage like that.
Yeah.
I thought the breakout character, because I'd met a lot of the Roundtrees and stuff, and I think they're funny guys too, but I had never met Brett before. So seeing him on camera, there were scenes that were clearly like other people were in the room and didn't really know. They weren't acting. They weren't being in a video. They were just being themselves in the cameras. I don't know. I don't know what to do. And he's like, I know, pack, like get your backpack.
Yeah. Brett was really,
he reminded me of a guy who seemed like that was him all the time, even though I don't know how much he was amping it up, but he was hilarious.
I think he definitely has tendencies to like be a dick, but I think he knows that and was like really leaning into it for his character for sure.
No, it was great because they were all like unique in their own way. Like Chad was hilarious. James hilarious. Like, oh man. So when is season 2 of that?
Oh my god, we were always talking about doing that. Yeah,
that's a good question. If you could just right now, if you're like, I'm just gonna pick up one of the things I left off from all those years ago, what would, and why is the answer Squirrel Boy?
What the fuck? There's a few things I feel like I have a genuine. I mean, like I would love to make a minimum wage season 2. I think that would be cool. I've always wanted to do like and we kind of missed the 10-year mark, but I would have loved to do a 10-year Awesome Show anniversary episode, do a long episode.
Sure.
In fact, I'd love to get Mr. Trubia involved.
I think you should have him on this. I think he might even do it. Oh man.
Yeah, I think he would.
I saw it was his birthday at one point, and I almost reached out, and then almost like, what if he doesn't remember me? Like real scared. I was like, he might, but
Also something. I was thinking of like literal like episode ideas with my brother a couple of years ago when I was working at Dry Street with him.
Right.
Was to bring D Walls back and make the whole series, because like we were coming up with some really good like modern day stories to do where like D Walls learns about critical race theory.
Oh man. Well, we had talked about, do you remember years ago we talked about like, what if we did one more episode of the Cosby Chronicles where all he does is just look at the camera and go, you know the joke. I don't need to say anything. Like we were ahead of the time. Yeah.
That was another the commentary we did on the first 10 episodes.
I remember doing it. I don't remember anything said though. Like
the whole bit, I watched a little bit of it kind of recently, but the whole bit was that we were just going to talk about the making of the show as if it were real. Like we were really dealing with Bill Cosby and he was hard to work with. He had all these strange demands. Kind of like what they did for the Talladega Nights commentary.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
20 years later or something.
Yeah.
I do kind of remember it now. Like we talked about like how difficult he was to work with and stuff. And
And we were just talking about shooting with him.
Okay. Yeah. Oh man. I feel like what's the one thing that we're going to forget that once we leave, we'll be like, we should have talked about that. Go. On this? Right now. Have hindsight.
Well, there's a couple things that I had that were just kind of related to this conversation, but like for more like a out meta perspective.
Sure.
But I did want to talk more about, I don't know, the getting in trouble with the videos things and like things you remember. But I think in that same vein, I wanted to ask you specifically, because we were talked about it before, like videos now that you look back on. Of course, there's ones that hold up and you're so proud, but then ones that you're more like kind of regretful about, or wish weren't up, or
sure.
Well, like embarrassing.
I mean, well, it's really nothing. Even to this day, I don't really feel like that'd be embarrassing. I'm sure I'd feel the same thing everyone else feels, but I don't like live to avoid like embarrassment and all that stuff. It's like I've accepted like, I'm a clown sometimes. I'm foolish. I say silly things, choice. Yeah, 100%. And I agree with that too. I don't look back at anything and say like, oh, I really regret doing that. Like some things haven't aged well in the sense that like I can remember being 15 and I know what I was feeling at the time and I know why I felt okay to say some of these things, but it's like I just don't stand by it anymore. That's not like who I think it's easier to process fucked up things when you're a kid, because like at that age it was probably like you said, you were more like ruthless, more like fearful, but it's just more like because you're putting the world in a bag you can hold, you know what I mean? I was like, well, if death doesn't even shock me, if I can laugh in the face of death, if I can laugh at people in having tragedies, nothing can affect me. I'm stoned. I can make it through this world. But when you get older, you realize like, no, your heart kind of breaks for things like that. It's like when you hear something sad for somebody else, it's like, I don't have that fire instinct to be like, you don't affect me. I'm more powerful than these sad emotions. That's how I could be wrong, but I feel like that's how I was handling things at the time. Like, oh, I can joke about the most effed up things on the planet because I'm just that kind of guy. I'm tough, you know, but it's really just like, that was to make it more palatable for me, you know, like, and again, it's not that like I don't, sorry for the pause.
No, you're fine.
Dead air.
No, you're fine.
The getting in trouble.
Pauses are fine.
Okay, good. Yeah. I don't know how the other ones go. So it just seems like stream of consciousness, but I'll probably like repeat the last thing I said to stay on track. I was like, shit. Like, yeah, you just put messed up things in terms you can like handle as a kid, you know? So like we said, we would joke about the most vile things. And so like now I would have no inkling to do that. And it's like, yeah, I get why I wouldn't want someone to see me at 13 just saying every swear word I can think of, you know what I mean? So it feels like that for me. Not that there's anyone specific I wouldn't want to see or anything like that, but I'm like, that's just a bad look to have. And especially in the world we live in now where it's like, everything's dog, everything you said and done. It's like, I would stand by it. If someone confronted me with the videos I made, I'd have no choice to. It's like, yeah, I was 12 years old and I said those things, you know, like I said bad words, you know, and like, even personally, I can't think of anything. There's no like true one vile thing I said or anything, but it's more just like, I don't want to watch videos of me 13 just swearing anymore, you know, like you're smarter, you grow, you know what I mean? I know you've taken videos down. Like it doesn't fit with my channel anymore. It's not as cohesive. Like, yeah,
I think that I've made a decision about a good portion of the videos long ago that I was like, you know what, these are, cause I don't care to defend these. And I also don't care about these being up and available. Yeah, exactly. Like I'm not going to miss these that much. Yeah. And the few friends that are going to, you know, message me probably years from now, like, hey, where is that video? Like, I'll just send them a private link.
Sure. Yeah.
But a lot of things that I leave up, even like I haven't gone through and privated a fresh round anytime in the past, like, I don't know, 5 years at least. And I'm sure if I did, I'm sure some more would come down, but I'm kind of at a point like where I don't feel like, because we think about the times and like, if for some reason I blew up and then they start digging into my shit, like, of course I can think of one video in particular that I still leave up that like I know would get me in so much trouble. But at the same time, it's a video where it's like, but as fucked up as it is, I still stand by it because it's really funny. And like, even at the time when I made it, it wasn't fine to do it. It was wrong even when I made it. And that's kind of the point, what the humor is completely predicated on. But of course, there are things that I'm sure up there still that like, if it were brought to the surface, like, what do you have to say about this? I might be like, oh, I don't like that anymore. Like, but I'm going to leave that up so you can see my mistake.
But I'm also not like in fear of like the cancel world or anything too, because it's like, I know where I work. I know where my friends are. I know people know who I am and like that stuff too. But it's more like, I don't feel the need to defend my kid self for being silly either. You know what I mean? I feel like it's up to the person watching it to understand that. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I'm going to cancel Cameron because of this horrible video I found. It was like, yeah, but you're an adult who can recognize that he's a child in that video just being stupid. Did you see him say that yesterday? Like, did he come into your place of work and start screaming at you and put mayonnaise on his face? You know what I mean? It's like, no, like, let sleeping dogs lie. I feel like there was another part to your question that I don't remember. Something about getting in trouble and then.
Well, I think the first part, we mostly honed in on just like the regrets and embarrassments about like hindsight, being older and looking back. But I think the first part of it was more about just, I don't know, moments of getting in trouble.
Like, I mean, it's more the feeling I feel, and a lot of it like has nothing to do with you. I know you're like, this is an open podcast and we talk about our feelings here, but I think a lot of it's innate in me anyway. You know what I mean? Like, I just like, there's no one I can get in trouble with now. I don't have a teacher. I don't have like a parent who's going to yell at me. Like, sure, your boss, you could always get fired. But it was like, even though that there's no like immediate threat of trouble and I'm clearly a grown man, it's like you still sometimes, it's just like an innate thing. I feel like something's wrong. I'm uneasy about something. I don't know what this is, you know? And I'll flash back to your profound, insightful younger brother, Landon, who I've been thinking about a lot too. Like, I can't stop thinking about your conversation of him saying, like, why does everyone worry about stuff all the time? Just look at me. I'm not worried. So I have a new mantra. Like, what would Landon do? Would Landon freak out about this? It's probably not worth worrying about. But I don't know. It's just, you know, it's nature for me too. So around then it was definitely like that, like, vein stuck out when I was walking around with you. Like, at any moment we can be in big trouble for the things that we said yesterday. Like, And even though like you talked about the phone call with your mom, like the principal yelling about you, what you did at home, and then your mom saying, you know, like, what does this have to do with school? Like I knew it would probably go similarly for me, but it doesn't erase the feeling I have right now of like, I feel like I need to be on edge right now. I'm walking on edge. Like I'm harboring a secret right now of my video life I make with Cameron. And even though I haven't made anything for you forever, I have no fear of like anything getting reserved. And like, what are they going to do? Come find me in my 45 minutes away little town and yell at me and cancel me from going to the grocery store? Like, sure, good luck. Like,
right.
But no, yeah, I definitely did feel, and maybe it's like a rush for some people, like living on the edge, or like, oh man, we could get messed up for this. Like you've had public interactions not go so well with people too. I don't know how specific you want me to be. I guess you could cut it out too. But remember walking around downtown Southport, guys laughing, you're eating pretend mayonnaise out of a jar, and then the guy pulls a knife on you. You know what I mean? But like, and you could see it in your face, so you don't even notice it right away. You're still laughing and having a good time. But then the second,
I think the viewer needs to hear specifically.
Okay, I didn't know if this was going to be here or not. Yeah, never. But,
so there was a video. I think it was 2011. We were making the 5th anniversary documentary for MH Productions, and one of the bits was I filled up an empty mayonnaise jar with Cool Whip, and but of course Cool Whip looks like mayonnaise, so I was walking around downtown just eating spoonfuls of Cool Whip in front of people and just talking to them, and I went up to a fella I knew the older fella in school. I think he's probably out of school at this point.
Yeah. Or maybe he should have been out of school, but he was probably still in school. It could have been the case. Yeah.
And you know, maybe he was a dangerous type of fella, and I just went up to him and just started eating the mayonnaise and talking to him. He's like, "Hey, back the fuck up, bro!" And he pulled a knife on me, and I was like, "Is that a knife?" And I like kind of stuck around a little bit longer, and he's like, "Back the fuck up, bro." I was like, "All right."
Another one I remember talk about like trouble or like us being silly could lead to like more harm. You may not even remember this one. We were walking around Southport in the middle of the day, and there were just some other young, probably our age guys screwing around, and it got into like rapping, where I remember you had a rap battle with the guy. And you just you just recited one of your raps or whatever, and it was the strangest thing. I bet anyone listening has great stories of someone getting hot at him, getting yelling at him, mad at him. This guy acted so strangely because he didn't seem visibly upset. You did one of your raps, and there was a line in it like, "You a skinny ass bitch" or something, and something I guess he secretly internalized and did not care for, because once it was over, you were walking away, he started following you and us, and then he goes so calmly, almost like a robot or a machine, he goes, "I would like to fight." And then you were like, "Well, I don't want to fight. I would not like to fight." And he goes, "Fine. Then I'll just have to provoke you." And just starts kind of kicking at your leg a little bit. And you're like, "I don't want to fight. Goodbye." And then we walked away. But I was like, okay, so that was the closest call we had to get into a fight with a weird guy. You didn't like that you rapped at him strangely. But again, he wasn't hot. He wasn't angry or anything. He just goes, "I was insulted. My honor was tarnished, and I feel the need to collect vengeance." Like,
oh my god.
Yeah. See, I wouldn't blame you for not even remember that it was so minor, but of course, because like more exciting things happened. But it was that was another time too, where you know your words had power over this man.
Yeah.
This is the mid-roll ad. Cool Ranch, or what is it? Shit. This is the mid-roll ad of the segment. Cool Whip. It looks like mayonnaise.
Mayonnaise flavored Cool Whip. Chocolate mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Maybe this could be fun.
Yeah.
Would you say I was difficult to work with?
Yeah. Yeah. Are you okay with me lying? You were great, dude. No, I don't. I mean, overall, no. But I think it's the same of anyone. If anyone spends too much time together, they're going to get under each other's skin. That's just unless you have like at 12 years old, we didn't have a plan of like, hey, if you're annoyed with me, we'll cool off. Like, no, we probably just made too many videos and got mad. Like, and I've noticed you. I don't think I'd ever say it to you if you were still like this, but I have seen you like 180 when we were kids. If you were communicating an idea to me and I wasn't getting it or wasn't receptive and I would want you to explain it more, that you would get very frustrated very quickly. And there was more than one time where you would just say, "How does this not make sense to you? How does this not make sense to you?" And I would get hot and I'm like, I don't know what you want from me then, dude. You obviously have an idea on your own. Figure it out, you know? Yeah. But like I see you're so patient with people now. And even on here, like, and just like the eye contact and one-on-one, I was like, I've never had full attention. And even when we were hanging out, I could tell when something was on your mind. And a big part of it to remember too, it sounds like oh, it was fun shooting stuff, writing a sketch, and it was fun, but it would come the time where it's still on your mind. I want to edit this. I want to do it now. So you would kind of shut off for a few hours, and I'm still hanging out.
Yeah.
And I would really value having like another friend, like Andrew or someone, or Jay or someone to hang out with too. Cause it's like, there were plenty of times where like I could tell you were trying, you're like, oh yeah, now I'm doing this. But I was like, he would much rather just be left alone and finish the editing process without me, you know? But yeah, no, I haven't worked with as much as your stuff recently, but you seem way more collaborative. You seemed almost like determined to go in it alone when we were younger, where it's like, I wanted actor, director, editor, you know, too. And not to say that you wanted to like write it all on your own too, or you were open to, you would always take feedback or jokes, but for the most part, it's like, I could see how thin you were spread. And now I see other things you do where you might not have as much of a handle on it, or is not as involved.
Yeah.
And it really like shows too. You're like, if I can solely edit or solely write or just be in this and not have to focus so much about what everyone else is doing, it like shows like people aren't really meant to multitask so hard, you know? Like,
yeah, I think I still like keeping the trifecta of writer, director, editor, and if I can act in it too, cool. I'm like 50-50 on it now. I want to act in half of them. I want to just stay behind it for the other half. But like, I know another thing was like I think you, like I explained, were someone that I usually liked a lot of the ideas that you would give me, especially in that dynamic where it's like, I got the big picture thing figured out and I'm open to like little jokes, little moments. Yeah, exactly. That's what I need help with. That's what I want contributions from. And that's typically the kind of contribution that you would make. And I also like find you funny. So a lot of the things you would suggest, I wanted. I was like, that's a great idea. Let's put that in. But I feel like there's plenty of times where I would work with people that got this impression that like I only wanted to do my own ideas and I didn't want anything else. And like for the large part, that was fairly true. But I also think that there's plenty of times where it was just like, it was someone who was suggesting things just didn't like really went against what it was we were making, or like
just to have an idea.
Yeah, it was like just it would change the thing entirely. It wouldn't fit. And like I didn't know how to tell them other than to say like, no, we're not doing that.
But I mean, a lot of the time too, like I said, for me, like I'm not hard to please. So it's like if I made a joke and you laughed right then, and then I was like, oh, I got what I needed. He thought it was funny. And even if it didn't end up in the video, then sure, I can't look back and be like, if only that one joke made in, this would have been as big as Rebecca Black video. But like, yeah. But no, I see what you mean too. And like, I appreciate that. Yeah. You thought like, you like my ideas too. And I think it just goes back to what you said, is that we worked well together too. Cause I remember having other people around and probably feeling the same thing as you, is like, no, that's stupid. No, like I'm not doing that. Like,
well, yeah, that was another thing too, what you pointed out about like when I would go into editing mode. I think I became more aware of that in the years where I was living in like Marina Village, and it was like I had a game system set up, and it was just like, when I go to editing, the at least two friends I have with me have each other, or even if it was just one person, like Andrew would love to just go like hop on the PlayStation and just play games while I edit it, and like I think just something as simple as having some sort of activity for other people to do around. And then
Cameron would just jingle keys in front while he's editing, and I'm just
that didn't work for very long.
I think it's worth mentioning. It has nothing to do with really what we're talking about, but I think it's funny and I want to remind you of it. You would edit videos, and I'm not really a video gamer. I'm not a Call of Duty guy or anything, but you know, I love to be silly and be social. So we had a little setup. Cameron would go to edit. Our friend Andrew would play Call of Duty or whatever game, and I would put the headset on and talk to people just with a little bit Kenny the nice talker, where I would never talk shit to anybody. I was like, thanks for letting me play guns with you guys today. Is this a good, and just have fun and be silly. And it was another avenue to do that without having to be good at video games. But yeah, they really do pickles too. I knew they did.
They do. They're good pickles.
Oh man. I don't even know how long we've been doing this. You know, the time flies. You know?
It's 11:11. I think we started right before 11, or sorry, right before 11, right before 10.
Really? Wow. Yeah. Okay. I was gonna like my internal clock's failing. I was like, it might have been like 30-40 minutes.
So it's between an hour and a half.
That's what I figured would go for you. I wasn't looking to break Colton's record or anything. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we can keep going.
Yeah, we can get into an argument, and that takes up a lot of time. You want to fight about something?
Well, do you have any other subjects you wanted to visit?
Well, I mean, just because I know what the theme of the podcast is, and it's kind of piggybacking off of other conversations. I'm not going to ask you to do what's the one thing you don't like about each other or whatever, because I feel like that's prime to hurt people's feelings. But I just have noticed, as similar as we are, and we're both silly and like to make people laugh and funny, I notice where the difference is like come out. You know what I mean? Like I've always said about Cameron, I was like, I feel like Cameron would rather be put to death than like make him rewatch a movie. It's like, hey, let's just sit here and watch something like a movie that like you've already seen. Like people get comfort and like
it's not the case across the board,
right? No, and I'm sure you do it. No one's but I mean, you're not the guy like, oh, I'm sitting here and rewatching The Office over and over. You know what I mean?
Like it makes me sick. Yeah, so many people use The Office and Always Sunny in Philadelphia to just throw on passively as like noise, and I like both of those shows, but I think I hate passive watching. Yeah, I hate like the use of a television as like noise in the room, and especially when it's like someone invites you over to like hang out, and it's like, let's just put on this show that we've both seen. It's
chill.
Like, what the fuck?
But I think it's just, but that's what I'm saying. It speaks more to the difference between I've like gotten better about it too. But it's like, again, I'm fine like idling. I feel like idling for me is like, oh, there's no problems. You know what I mean? It's like, sure, I'm not running out and like doing something brand new, but I'm like, everything's fine. Everything's stationary. Like nothing needs my immediate attention. And I'm kind of okay with that and content with it. Whereas you are just like, I feel like I'm going to die. If I just sit here, I need to get up. It may be like an introvert extrovert thing because...
Well, I certainly wouldn't call myself an extrovert.
I was under the wrong impression of that. I think who I was set straight on was my younger brother, Danny. He gave me a perfect example because I said, I'm not really an introvert because I have no problem talking to people. I'm like, I'll be a fool in front of anybody. I like looking for people to make laugh. And he's like, it has nothing to do with how outgoing you are. He was like, what it really, and this is his telling of it, he was... The way it really made sense to me was like, which one is more draining for you? Like if you're sitting at home doing it, are you like, I just got to get out. I got to go walk around. I got to go see some people, you know? Or when you're out doing stuff, are you more like, I'm just ready to be home. I can't wait to be home after all this. You know what I mean? And I'd say you might be more the extroverted one. Like I feel like you'd feel better knowing you did a bunch of shit that day. Or like if you're just sitting around with nothing to do, like I want to go out. Let me go talk to people. Let me see what my friends are doing, you know? Like whereas I'm like, even like today, like I love seeing you. I love my friends and all that too. But last night I wouldn't be lying if I said, oh shit, I got to go to Wilmington tomorrow. I'm going to help Cameron with this thing. And then I'll be back. Then I'll be home later doing nothing. Like it's an odd goal. You know what I mean? I just need to get back to safe, you know, like,
I think if it's between the two, I mostly feel like I get a lot of my energy and feel the best when, I'm by myself in my room working. I like that seems to be the thing, but also it's just the thing that I do the most. And it's probably why it feels the most comfortable. But I think I only like going out when I have like a mission or a purpose. And so it's like, here'd be a good, let's say it's, just any old friend that I haven't talked to in a while. Like, hey, let's meet up for a drink. And I have to have the uncomfortable. Like, I don't really drink anymore, but I'm down to like grab a soda water and talk to you for hours or whatever. You know, like we catch up. Yeah. So we go do that, and then like I show up, and then there's like two other friends of theirs that I don't really know that come up, and then there's just kind of like this disbursement of attention where it's like, oh, we don't get to have like a one-on-one conversation. It's more this sort of, I have to now get to meet these people, and then pretty quickly realize like, all right, I don't think there's like a connection here. Right. The social environment is now kind of like, this is not how I want to spend any more than 30 minutes, really. And so then probably 30 minutes later, like, hey, I got to go.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But other way around is like, it's a friend I've wanted to catch up, or it's meeting someone new, like someone I message on Instagram, and it's like, hey, you seem interesting. Let's have a conversation. All right, let's meet up for coffee. I don't drink coffee, but I'll have a water, you know, like, and so then I talk to the person, and it's just me and them. Yeah. And we get to know each other over like 2-3 hours of conversation. And it's like, and then we have all these ideas about things that we can do. It's like, that to me is productive and was totally worth that time. And I didn't want to leave within 30 minutes of it. Yeah. And then of course, to bring my original example, and other things, you know, invite me, hey, let's catch up, come over. All right, I'm gonna put on The Office and let's just sit here. It's like, oh, fuck you, dude. I left my room where I was doing things and moving along with my life for you to be like, hey, put your life on pause for a second, sit next to me to watch this thing that we've both seen already.
And
like only
would drive you nuts.
Mildly enjoy.
But because you've talked to me about your like how you view time in that regard of just like, I feel like I'd feel horrible if I wasted time. You know what I mean? That like eats at you harder to waste time. Whereas again, like
I hate wasting
I know
time.
You do. And like I can completely resonate with that. And like all the things I've done, I can't be like, dude, I got to tell you about when I was hanging at home last week. Like you're not going to hear stories like that. But like, oh, when I went down to the bar, you know, dude, I didn't see anyone all day, but you're never going to believe what happened. Like what good story is going to come after that unless something really wild's going on? But it's like. I don't know. It's like people are just kind of like built differently. Like if you woke up one day and you had nothing to do, like, I mean, how rare would it be if you just like, I didn't go anywhere all day. I hung out, you know, and I'm sure knowing you'd be working on something, but it's just like, oh, there was a show I hadn't seen or some movies. I just sat there, ate some food around noon, talked to a friend a little bit, but it was a pretty nothing day. I feel like I don't hear that out of you. Like,
yeah, but to answer the introvert extrovert question, I feel like I'm an omnivert. I feel like there are both introverted, because I can also be by myself and goof off and piss time away.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like I actually have kind of a habit, and I really can't reason with myself. Something I noticed I started doing when I got into meditation around 2017 is, and maybe I've always done it and I just suddenly became aware of how much I do it. But right around the time I started making Daiko no Tawo, a lot of the time, the way I would like come up with ideas for that is I would get high in my room by myself.
Right.
And I would use my whiteboard or maybe notes on my computer or like physical notebooks.
Yeah.
And I would just pace around my room and think and talk to myself and write some things down, map things out. And like I do that getting high to the side, writing things down to the side. I do a lot of this pacing and thinking. And I don't know how much I'm actually like being productive in terms of thinking things through and deeply and actually like moving through things, or how much I'm actually just kind of thinking in circles and pissing time
a little
away.
bit. Yeah,
spiraling.
I get that.
Yeah. And I think I've become more and more aware of like how the intentional thinking and how it can spiral into something good. Like I can go into that in a bad mood and think something through and then spiral into this, like now I've generated a positive, powerful, confident emotion out of it. That seems very productive to me.
Right.
But it might be like, oh, I'm feeling really good. Let me think about this thing. And then I start thinking about things that stress me out and I start tearing myself down and then I spiral into something that's like, so again, introvert, extrovert, there's situations that are both extroverted or introverted where it's either productive or it's not. And I think that my whole getting energy out of either of those situations has to do with my judgment as to whether or not it was productive.
Right. Okay. I see that. Yeah. Whereas like, again, I could have a day where like, if there were no problems, I could call it a good day. You know what I mean? Like maybe I didn't accomplish much as somebody else. And I think it's just like how people are different. You know what I mean? Because I find it like content, like it's great to like do stuff, and every like great experience you have is something new or something that changed you or you grew from. But a lot of the time I spent, like, I never felt bad about what I was like doing. If I was just planting for a while, I was like, well, I go to work, I get up on time, I pay my bills, and if I'm not bothering anybody, who cares? Like, I'm content with less than most people. You know, I can eat the same foods most days. I can go to watch a movie, like the same show every now and then just to rewatch it. But I mean, again, eventually you'll find your own level of like, if that's okay or not. Like if I'm okay with it, far be it from anyone else to tell me like I'm a shut in, like whatever. It's like, I'll go home after work, and as long as I don't have anything to do, leave me alone, you know? But it's like, it's only you that's going to tell you that, because now it's like this far into the game where I'm finally like feeling it harder of like, oh man, go do something else. And when I first heard you and Landon do what's the one thing you could change about each other, I'm like, I already know Cameron's answer for me. You know, he wants to drag me by my hair out from old town and be like, come look at the world, it's great, dude. Like, embrace it. Because I mean, I'll say that if I'm beating around it a lot too. Like I've never been like, I'm a little anxious person, I'm a worrier, I've always been like that. I worked with a lady who said, you seem so chill, you just look like nothing bothers you. And I said, ma'am, I might be the most wound up person you've ever met in your entire life, you know what I mean? But I hide it well. But yeah, it's just always how it's been. But I thought my answer to that was like making my world smaller. I was like, oh, okay, well, if I only need to go here, then I have no need to embrace the scariness, you know what I mean? But it's like, it took me this long to finally feel the downside of it. Like I moved to a new place and I was like, I feel like I'm going to be way more anxious because I'm moving on top of the holidays and this is a tough time of year and all this. But for some reason, like having something to worry about calmed me down, because it also, like, I knew I was anxious and I knew I was worrisome growing up. But it didn't strike me as a problem until the past few years when I would feel all those same feelings, but there was no cause. I was like, why am I so worked up right now? Like, I feel like I'm having like an episode or something, but I didn't even think, even at the time, I didn't think like, I mean, looking back, I'm like, I could have been having panic attacks and not even really noticed it or not even realize that's what it was. Yeah. Cause like time would creep by. Like I would like go home and I'm just like, I don't want to be anywhere. Like everything's fine. I can think of, I'm doing checklists in my head. Like work's fine. Friends are fine. Like family's like, what has got me like this, you know? So, I mean, it's like coming in now to realize like, yeah, the answer isn't shut everything out and like, you know, make sure everything's okay. Like, yeah, there's no problems in a box that is big. But it's like, you got to make your life like big, and yeah, there's going to be problems and shit that's scary, you know, and I'll probably react horribly to a lot of it. But I mean, that's growth, you know what I mean? And things that bother me now won't bother me in a few years. But I just feel like I've calmed down a lot overall. And if I feel like, wow, it took me this long, but I'm ready to get going now. I'm ready to stand up, you know, so don't be surprised if you see me out here a little more, you know what I mean? And I know that's always what you wanted from me. Like, I did stand up once and I had a great time and I got good feedback, and some of the comedians I saw with you, it's it's going to blow. I don't want to say a name for fear of it being wrong, but one of them came up to you and said, "Who's your funny friend?" to me. And like, that was like 7 years ago. And I'm still like, wow, what a nice thing to say.
Yeah.
And I was like, it is like embarrassingly it is laughable that the thing that's keeping me from coming up here and trying it, like I heard you say you've been doing it for what, 10 years now or whatever. I've been around that whole time not doing anything because I don't want to drive over there, man. I'm fucking parking, you know, like where am I going to park? And then I'm gonna have to at the end of the night, like what is that, like I don't know.
Dude, you'd be fucking great.
I don't like I know, but again, I'm not going to say that. I don't want it to be like, oh, I've got some secret talent that this one thing is keeping me from being the ultimate success of Wilmington, because it's like I'll go up there and I'll fuck up and I'll fail and I'll find my groove and people will think I'm stupid week after week, but I'm like, it's just like ridiculous that the thing holding me back is like the thing that like nobody else would think about, you know what I mean?
Driving.
Like, yeah, even like your 18-year-old brother Landon, or your younger brother Landon would be like, so I'll fucking pick his ass up and drive him. But I was telling you about another friend who he told me a story of something he did and I couldn't relate to him at all. I was like, that was bothering you, that minor thing? But it's like everyone's different, you know, everyone. And the only time I don't feel okay with it is when people try to make me feel okay. It's like, it's okay, not everybody likes it. I was like, don't you try to make me feel better about my inadequacies. Come on. Like I need to overcome these. Like so it's been transformative, you know, and you're part of it too. Like I said, I was like, I want Cameron to train me in meditation and thinking and like, because we've always had conversations like this and I'm like, I'm not too proud to share wisdom from other people, you know, too. So
well, yeah, that was something that kind of came up there about you talking about how the stress of like moving kind of, you thought that was going to make things worse, but it seems to like taking that on and getting through it actually made that stress kind of like your overall stress kind of come down.
It's like I have a real thing to worry about now, so I don't have to sit here and make up reasons. Like I don't have to sit here and be like, oh, what's the thing that I'm freaking out about right now? It's like, oh, well, here's something, but it's under my control, you know?
Right. Well, there's that, but also like obviously meditation itself is like a Swiss Army knife of like all sorts of things you get out of it. And, you know, there's something about like that meditation and strenuous exercise and like ice baths all kind of have in common for this. And it's like these intentional stressors of like, because meditation, it's weird to think about as a stressor, but it is that for if you don't meditate, the idea of sitting still for 10, 20 minutes is really uncomfortable for a lot of people. Like people think I can't do that. It's like, well, if you think that you can't do it, that's like the main reason you should start. And that might be a very big reason why it's like night and day of who I am now in terms of being able to pay attention this much in conversation, where like probably before my high school, middle school years, I was much more aloof. You might get me to make eye contact for like 5 or 10 seconds. And if you don't have my attention, it's gone. And then I would get angry really quickly.
Irritable.
Like, all these things. And I think the discipline of meditation alone to just be like, all right, I'm going to take control. And even with that time anxiety, I'm going to do literally nothing for 20 minutes. With this sort of faith-based belief that 20 minutes is going to make the rest of the time that I'm doing things better. I'm going to do more. I'm going to be more efficient. So like that was maybe I had a utilitarian view that got me to do it. But it's sitting with the stress in the case of meditation and realizing, oh, it just kind of recedes when you just feel it. And then in the case of something like exercise or an ice bath, it's like super uncomfortable. But when you intentionally go through that discomfort regularly, it makes all the other discomforts of your life, like it raises your baseline for discomfort. So then all the other things that normally would stress you out if you weren't doing those things stress you out so much less or not at all. Like something like if I go take an ice bath now and then I get on the road and people do things that if I hadn't taken that ice bath would have me freaking out and cussing and going like, you fucking motherfucker. I just shocked my body and sat there in freezing intentionally. So now I'm on the road, someone cussed me, I was like, whatever,
who cares? Exactly.
So it's that kind of thing. So like you know, you taking on stresses intentionally makes sense for to like lower your, like the more you take on, and then to circle back, like you're talking about, like a good day for you is no problems came up. To me, a good day is when I get to the end of it and I'm exhausted because I did a bunch of shit. Like a good day for me is like, I got up, I didn't fuck around on my phone when I woke up, I waited till noon to eat anything. I exercised. I took an ice bath.
Yeah.
I edited these photos. I edited this video. I exported this footage. I synced this sound. I recorded this podcast. Yeah. I did stand up. It went well.
Right.
And I went to the grocery store. I ran these errands. I got all these things knocked out. And then it's like, all right, it's 10 p.m. and I'm ready to go to sleep. Like, that feels good to me, where it's like a day where maybe I just did a couple of those things and then I had too many moments where I got on my phone and looked at TikTok for a fucking hour.
Right.
It's like that was a fine day, but I wish I didn't do that.
Yeah.
And I try to listen to that, like, conscience tell me about these little nitpicky things and be like, well, I will feel better if I listen to this voice that most people let crush them.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good way of putting it too. Yeah. And a lot of like the stuff I've been reading too, because like it's again this past year where I've really tried to like evolve and either get past the things that hold me back or just make them work for me in a better way, you know, instead of it being like a crippling fear of nothing, you know what I mean? It's like, well, no, maybe I'm a little wound up, but that just means I've thought ahead. I've planned this, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, something really bad might happen. It's like, yeah, I consider that might happen. So I'm kind of more ready for it. And it's like, it's not like any of it comes from like one, like, again, I don't have like, oh, one time I was in a bad car accident, so now I don't like driving anymore. It's like it comes from nothing. I've just never enjoyed it. I'm just like tense. I'm like, I'd much rather be where I'm going. You know what I mean? I think I'd thrive much better in like a big city where everything's walking distance. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But it's just kind of like I've always stick with what I know. And I probably was wearing this last time you saw me. You know what I mean? I'm just like, I don't know.
I wonder if it's like some sort of, I don't know, wreck statistic that was like put in your head at a really early age. You don't even remember anymore.
Yeah, I don't even know if there's anything to do with driving in particular either, because I think a thing that I think I just like have accepted. I was like, no, I'm just kind of I don't want to use like the wrong word. I don't want to say like neurotic or paranoid or anything, but it's like I am more like hyper aware all the time. Like if somebody walks into a room, I'm getting neurotic probably is the right word. I think I'm associating like a negative connotation to it, but even if there is, like, I mean, I probably own that too. You know what I mean? Like I can be somewhat neurotic for sure. And like a lot of it, like sometimes it'll benefit me. Like I said, you know, it's like, oh, well, I planned for this. I mean, you're not going to surprise me with that. I didn't forget to put gas in the car. I'm not just breezing through life. It's like I'm thinking probably way more than I need to, you know? Yeah. But a lot of it too, I was never like oh, poor me, look how hard I have it. Because like you said, I wasn't doing anything to make it better. I wasn't going for walks. I was just like, no, let me just stew in this and let this like fucking, it was a comedian who made a great joke about it. He said, I think it was Pete Holmes. I don't know how credit works on podcasts. Pete Holmes made a wonderful joke, and he said, like you're going off to bed, and then that's when those thoughts come into your head. It's like, hey, remember that thing that happened earlier today? I think we're gonna have that playing for a while. How's all night sound? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, what do you got to do? Sleep? Just you, me in the dark? Come on! Like I'm just gonna play this on a loop in your head, and it's like uncontrollable. Years ago, I had a conversation with you and another friend about like. You want it to be so easy as like, I can recognize that I'm having this feeling. So it's like, I'm worked up about nothing. Gone. Let me knock it out. But it doesn't work like that. Like you just think that since you recognize why it's happening, then it shouldn't be happening to you. You know what I mean? Or just like horrible things that happened in the past. Like, oh, I get that I'm sad because of this, so I shouldn't be sad anymore, right? It's like, no, you just got to feel your feelings. You're not smarter than your body. You know what I mean? You're not going to outthink how you're feeling some of the time.
Yeah.
Or like, what was the other? It's a common quote. Like, let the body handle the problems. The mind can't. Like, I just can't stop my mind from spinning. I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to do a bunch of push-ups, you know?
Yeah.
Like, but I'll let you know when I got it totally figured out. Maybe next time I'm on.
But I know we also talked a little on the phone about you read 12 Rules for Life.
I did. It was gifted to me years ago, and it sat on my shelf for a long time. But like reading in general was like a newer habit for me. Like, you know, in school, you're supposed to read this, supposed to read that. I didn't like discover that learning is cool until like a year or two ago. I was like, there's info in there. And then I'll have it, and then I'll know it. And it's almost like the same thing of like, I just put a cheat code in a video game. I just know this now. And it's like, I can pick and choose what's worth applying and what's disregarding, you know, because like not to piggyback. You want to get Colton in here? Is Colton here? Yeah.
I was going to say, sometimes the things you disregard and the things you choose to use, it's not even, a lot of times it's not even conscious. It's kind of like just what grips your attention and is applicable to you. Because that's a book I've actually read a number of times.
Really? Okay.
And like, I know I absorbed a good bit the first time I read it, but I feel like I can remember like the second or third time I read it, that just the time, like it was either a second or third time, and I audiobook rather than sit and read.
Sure.
So that I can like go on. And I remember it was during 2020 when I was living with my grandma on my dad's side briefly, and it was early in the pandemic, and I had just like made the decision, all right, I'm going to get off my, caffeine, weed, and whatever.
I thought you were going to say keister. I'm going to get off my keister and get to work.
And also it was the middle of summer, so hot as hell.
Yeah.
And I was like going on these walks down in like Halliburton Park.
Yeah.
And I would just, walk from my grandma's apartment, which was like almost like 30 minutes, 45 minutes just to get to the park. And then I walk in the park for a bit and then I come back.
Yeah.
And I just sweat. And I would put my AirPods in and I just listened to the book. And then after, I don't know, a week or two, probably within a week, finished the book again.
Yeah.
And that time I just remember being able to pay much closer attention and absorb so much more because I was further along in meditation, which allows me to absorb more. And also I was further along in other kinds of reading to where I was like now able to understand a lot of the things better. And also hearing it again, you just absorb more.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, not to go off too much on that tangent, but just that thing about like what it is that you pick and choose.
Exactly. Yeah. Because his book in particular too, there was a lot of great, like, I don't know if it was in the book, but somewhere he said like, hey, if you're feeling real anxious or if you're feeling just real nervous, like, when you're feeling super courageous, your body reacts the same way. So just and I've been treating myself like a kid almost, you know what I mean? I was like telling myself how I was like, no, you're not nervous right now, buddy. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and sometimes it works, you know what I mean? You just got to be like, listen, I'm going to grab myself by the shoulders and shake. I think the most applicable rule to me was the second one, the treat yourself like someone else. Because it's crazy how like just simple terms like that, I've never thought of it that way. It's so easy for me to like, I haven't really eaten today, whatever. I'm just going to loaf around for a few more hours, like, I really should do this. But it's like, if I had a kid or even like you, if someone's like, you're legally responsible for taking care of Cameron now, it's like, I'm not going to let you go all day without eating. I'm responsible for you. You know what I mean? It's like, why am I doing it to myself? And it sounds so obvious and so stupid when you hear it. Like, of course, yeah, duh, eat vegetables, go for a walk. But you know how like your mind, like it's not like a self-deprecating thing, but it's almost like I'll be fine. I know me. I know I can eat later and be okay. But it's like, yeah, but you'd be better if you ate something now and then went to bed at a good hour,
Yeah, no, no, you're fine. Yeah. I can see how that, like knowing you that would be like a really valuable rule for you, and I think it's great that you like got that value out of it.
Sorry, it took me so long.
No. Yeah, because I mean, also someone else, I won't say who it is, but it was very close to me at one point in our lives, and she was very. I feel like that's a rule that she really needed to hear.
Yeah,
because she was someone that like was on medication and like. I don't know, didn't, and not just medication, just so many things like taking care of yourself and eating, and then just doing things for yourself. Whereas like she just kind of dispensed with taking care of herself,
a
lot. And I don't know, feel, and even now, like there's so much in front of people where like they admit they're talking all the time about how fucking miserable they are.
Yeah.
And there's all these things right in front of them that they can do for themselves.
Right.
That they just don't.
Yeah. But I mean, my thing with that too is like, even though I accepted it, is like, I'm here because of my choices. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm feeling miserable because of all the stuff I did wrong to get here. But I was never like the complainer, poor me, look at me. I was like, no, I'm just going to joke it all away and have fun with my friends and I'll deal with it privately. That's always just how I've been. I've never, this is probably the most open I've been in a while. Like just sitting here on a podcast talking about like my worriness, my worries and, intentions and all that. But it's like, I mean, I don't know. You can go two ways. Like a few years ago, I had like some rough stuff happen that made it really easy to like see two lanes. You know what I mean? It was like, and they both seem equally like, yeah, those would both be great right now. And one of them's like, I just want to do good. I want to make everybody proud. You know what I mean? I just want to show them that like I'm here for a reason and like, kick ass and show life what's up. And the other one's like, the Nile, like, who gives a fuck? We're only here for so long anyway. Who gives a shit if I like treat my body like my first car, you know what I mean? And just like trash and gives a shit. And they both like, and it could be different days, you know what I mean? One day you wake up as one of those men and one day you wake up as the other. Like, who gives a shit? I don't even care. I'm just gonna like eat a whole pint of ice cream and smoke a pack of cigs and not do anything else all day. And the other day you're like, no man, I got like a fire burning in me. I want to go for a walk. I want to go talk to people. You know what I mean? I want to get smarter today. I want to learn something. Like, yeah. And like, that's like the war thing too. And I have to realize that it's like, nothing's going to happen passively. Like I have to decide to be that one every day. You know what I mean? Even if I wake up feeling like the who cares, it's like, well, you're not in charge anymore, buddy. Look where you got us, And that was the hardest part of like the Jordan Peterson to kind of rationalize with, is like, I was almost scared to like, like forge new voices in my head almost, or like acknowledge ones that were already there. Cause I'm like, I don't like the idea of like, I feel like I'm turning myself into like a schizophrenic or something like that. You know what I mean? I was like, I don't want to have these warring. I was like, I want everyone to be on the same page and cohesive. And I almost thought like, is this dangerous? Is this dangerous to have like the me talking to the other me? You know what I mean? But I don't know. I mean, you might have more to say about that, because I know you talk about like the sides of the brain and the self and all that. But like Jordan Peterson, even in the book, said one thing too, is like, do you hear that criticism? Do you hear like someone telling you you're not good enough? He's like, well, then ignore it. That's not wisdom you're listening to. That's criticism. Literally what it is criticism, and it's not worth listening to, even from you, you know? Like, so if you have someone clawing at you saying you're the worst, you're no good, no one's going to be there, it's like, well, I don't necessarily have to listen to you, bud. Like, meaning yourself, you know? But so again, I'm still new to a lot of it, but yeah.
Well, I think the thing that you said that I actually sparked an interesting thing to talk about with you.
I am a genius, so
would be like kind of how you're talking about almost joking your way through life.
Yeah.
And I feel like that when I was, I mean, for most of my life, certainly all the way up to prior to the meditation sort of shift, is that and I didn't like, I don't think I openly like thought of myself like this, but looking in hindsight, it's like realizing like that version of me that was nihilistic and hedonistic, I think my top value was humor. Like all I cared about was just being funny. And that was like, I mean, I know I would think in my head, like I would reinforce, like talking to myself would be like, Cameron, you're the funniest person on the planet. And like I would know, I knew at the time saying it that I was like, this is ridiculous. This is not true. This is not measurable. This is inflated ego. Like I knew what I was saying, but for some reason I would continue to repeat it in my head. And I think that during those years, that might have been the funniest I was right up to the end, like prior to me getting into meditation. But at what cost, I think, is the question. And I think I was so deep into humor being this like top value, with just like, humor is all that matters, just being funny. What even is truth and love and any of that, whatever. And so I think that it's enjoyable to be really funny, and you laugh a lot, and that's a really great thing. But I think when you're not laughing and you're not being funny, what's there is
are
really
you happy?
Unstable. And so I guess I know I show this I've shown this clip to a number of people. I've never played it on the podcast, but it's a Jordan Peterson clip that when I first got, very shortly after getting into meditation and first getting into his stuff, is this clip of him talking about the truth. And that clip fucked me up. It in a really, probably the most positive way possible. And I think that this clip alone, I mean, of course there's so many other things that aren't Jordan Peterson related that contributed to who I am now. But I think this clip alone, just highlighting the value of truth and conceptualizing it in this way, really made me think, and I have really made an aim to get further and further. Like now I think about my three values in this way as truth, humor, and love. And I think it's like truth needs to be first, and humor needs to be second to it. Humor definitely matters. And I don't think most people talk about humor in this context of like divine truth.
It's already familiar.
But I still like have gone my whole life really valuing it, and I still think it's very valuable. I think humor is actually a really important kind of shadow of truth. And but love, I think it's not even that it's third, it's actually more like zeroth. It's like both things need to be encased in love. It's like love kind of helps you, because if you just say it's just the truth, then that will have you just saying all sorts of truth that may be true, but maybe you're sharing truth to people in ways that is not loving. Like it's you're doing it. I'm going to just tell this person the truth and fuck them, you know.
It's more for the sayer than because I hate hearing that. Like,
it's like you could, like I could, let's say there was a difficult truth I needed to tell you. Like let's say there was something that has been bothering me about our relationship for so long, and it's not true, but that I feel like I'm communicative with. You're also just someone that has never bothered me.
That's good.
And there's obviously there's one truth that it's this thing that needs to be communicated, but there's probably a large quite a bit of variability in how I communicate that truth to you, and the way I say it, and the way so if love was not encasing the thing, I might just say it to you in whatever harsh way I feel like it, because I'm only concerned with just getting it out.
Right.
But if you encase it in love, it's like, no, Kenny is a really good friend of mine. I do not at all want to compromise our friendship, but I do need to share this, so I'm going to be very careful with how I say this to him, and I'm going to let it out in a way that is loving.
Yeah.
So, and then same with humor. It's like, you know, you can make really harsh jokes to people that are done from a place of actually secretly hating the person or whatever. But if you do it from you can still make mean, biting jokes to people, but if it's done in love, it truly, they feel it. And they're fine with you. They're like, oh my God, that was great that he picked on me. Like, I got it. I felt it. I know that's my brother. I know he cares about me. I feel it. So I think that encasing both things in love is really important.
Right.
And in just case, like everything you do in love, like the way you create, that's another thing. I didn't have that value before. And that's been a really hard thing for me to reconcile with the way I was doing things, because it was always this blatant disregard. It's like, it's just what's funny, and it's just about making things
right,
and then just wrapping my head around love, because I've always had some sort of grasp on romantic love, but then wrapping your head around this more like lofty, universal, like bigger love is this like very fundamental energy and emotion. It's like love is actually kind of synonymous with just positive energy as a whole. It's super powerful, energetic force that moves through everything. So anyway, I guess it's been a very hard, long adjustment period for me to figure out how to navigate. Like, I feel like the way I would navigate myself, that's an ongoing process, but I feel like I got some sort of grip on navigating myself on a personal level in my real life really quickly into this shift that I had. But the lag of how to go about doing art in a way that aligns with those values, that rearrangement of values, that's been hard. Wow. And I think I'm just now getting to the place where like it makes sense and it's natural to me. But I really like the last 5 Camboy albums that I made, like kind of starting the pandemic and then Love Songs. Like, I feel like that's maybe like Doc and Otawa, the film, was a really good representation of the explosion of my world coming up. The movie represents my dark, fucked up world in my head, and then I think the end represents the destruction of it, like realizing it needs to be addressed and destroyed, and that's what happens in the end. And so I feel like after that movie, I was kind of starting at ground zero, rebuilding something new, and what my creativity ended up getting funneled into. Like I tried to make Black Hole, I tried to make another movie, but it fell apart on its own, and I honestly don't feel like that movie was gonna do what I needed it to do for me creatively. But the arc of the Camboy albums, just the theme of love, that like it's not really in the first Camrona. It's addressed in the Bad Boy album. It's the No Girls Allowed song and Sensitive Side. And I don't know how familiar you are with
these. I haven't heard them all. At least once I was nervous a quiz was coming up because I was like, I'll be so bad at it. Just because I'm not like, that's rap.
So tell me which song these lyrics are from. And so it's like, but it's kind of like it addresses like I'm scared of love a little bit, like in there, but I'm a bad boy, so I don't even worry about that stuff. And then I Don't Feel Well, I Need Attention is like the album I made in the wake of this fucking psychotic break I had, and I'm like piecing my self back together, and I'm writing in a more poetic and real way. I'm kind of tapping into the truth there with that one, and I'm using it, and it's uncomfortable, and I'm incorporating humor after I get a hold on using the truth. And then there's a whole section of the album that's kind of about love, and then it goes back, and it's just, all right, rapping, here's fun. So I was just having fun for the last several tracks, and then they get kind of real in the last 3 ones. I Don't Feel Well, I Need Attention is probably like my best album, I think, in my opinion. There's only, well, never mind. I won't get into that. And then Camrona 2, there was this really, I feel like, nice metaphor with love and the virus, or it was more like fear in the virus. And you know, the opening track just kind of lets you know, okay, we're continuing, and this is sort of the feel of the album. Then it immediately goes into COVID Crush, I think. Is that? No, Lockdown. And it's kind of like I'm locking myself down from feeling love. Like I'm afraid of love, so we're going to lock down. Love is kind of like, it's the virus. I'm not going to let myself get the virus of love. And then it's COVID crush. I'm crushing on a girl who may potentially have COVID, but you know what? I feel something for her, so I'm going to go get that COVID. I'm going to go experience. Yeah. And then right after that, take your vitamins, and immediately it's turned like, oh, that didn't work out. Fine, I'm going to take my fucking vitamins. I'm immune to this shit. Fuck that. And then, there's just this whole thing about like facing fear with that album. It was much more like artfully done and like brought the metaphor together. And then fucking love songs for absolutely no one. It's like, I intentionally in real life recognize I have this fear of romantic love. I have not gotten over this since the one relationship I've been in, and I intentionally dove into a real romantic situation that, from a, if you break everything down, is actually kind of funny on itself. Well,
it all
I hung out with this girl like 3 times, or twice I think, when I made the album. And I made a whole album for her. And it's like, but it's really fucking good. Like that's the only album I feel like I actually might like more than I don't feel Well I Need Attention, I think, is a more colossal and deep and interesting album. It's got a wider range. I think it's more meaningful. But I think Love Songs for Absolutely No One is much more polished, and like every song, there's not a song on that album I don't like. I like all of it. Even 2 years later, I listened to it again recently. I'm like, I enjoy listening to this album.
As a fan.
As a fan of myself. I really like this album. So I feel like that arc there, and then it's like in line with the truth. Like, love is this theme, and I've, of course, continue to incorporate humor. But now truth has become, it was a main driving force there in that last one, where it's like I was starting to slowly incorporate it. But that one is like, no, this is all in line with the truth. It's this uncomfortable truth. If I love this person I've only hung out with twice, this is embarrassing. But it's true. And I'm sharing this in this way that's uncomfortable for probably both of us, honestly. And
I'm sure for her.
For sure. I mean, she's had a whole arc of like,
coming around.
She liked the individual songs I was sending her as I was making it. And then at a certain point, she's like, okay, this is too much. And then I put it out and she was upset with me. And then in a few days, she changed her mind. She was like, no, it's cool that you made something. And then we got in a fight. And then she was like, you know what, fuck you. And then 2 months later, then she finally was like, hey, let's talk. This is actually a real. I finally listened to it. Actually, I didn't just skim through it. And it's a really good album, and that was so meaningful for me.
It's all you needed.
That moment, because it was like I made it for her, and for me to be under this impression I made that she fucking hates it and she's mad at me for it, that sucks.
No, definitely.
But to have it in like 2 months later, her be like, hey, I apologize, and it's actually really good. I like it. And then I got to hang out with her shortly after. We're in a hotel room singing the songs together. That was fucking unreal.
And it's like, you never know until you like walk out on that ledge, you know what I mean? And like try. It's like the exact thing I was talking about earlier. Like if you had a day where you were just trying to not have problems, like none of that shit would happen. You know what I mean? You're like, I'm going to risk being uncomfortable, being nervous, being scared, and then you come out the other side of it, 2 months later, singing songs in the shower that didn't exist a little while ago. Like, oh man, there's something else I want to say about that. I don't know.
But the whole point of all of that was the truth and humor thing. Like what do you feel like your relationship with those two things are? Do you feel like you have some sort of what is your concept of truth?
That's a heavy one. I was gonna more backpedal to the humor part of it too, just because I feel like that's an easier like relationship to chart or whatever. Because it's like, again, I think everyone's kind of funny in their own way, and like you can find funny things, but like being quick and being witty, I've always like valued that as a skill. You know what I mean? Like in other people, I'm like, God, that guy's so sharp. You know what I mean? Like I can't believe how quick like his mind works like that. And honestly, like from like my dad, when I was a kid, he was like one of the funniest people I ever met, and gave me like just little things I kept in mind all the time. And I'll use this time to have them recorded so everyone can remember them. But one of them was just like not everything out of your mouth has to be a joke. You don't have to be that guy that's always saying something. And he put it to me so simply. He said, if you say 5 things, like in class, like this is more, class clowny kind of advice. He was like, if you say 5 things, maybe 3 of them are really funny, people are going to remember you're real funny. If you say 1,000 things and 3 of them are really funny, people are going to remember how fucking annoying you are. You know what I mean? So that's always something I kept in mind. But the one thing I would have like engraved for him or whatever was just like, you can't fake it. You can't pretend to be funny. You know what I mean? You could pretend to be happy or sad. You could pretend to be sick if you wanted to. You could pretend to be mad at somebody. You can't pretend to be funny. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not really funny. I'm not. You didn't laugh at that. You know, it was, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, so that it was like always having it there, and just like as simple as, you know, like, oh, they laughed at what I said, that makes me feel good. And that's just like a childish reaction that never really goes away. It's like, oh, I like that they thought what I said, you know, like their face is smiling now because of a thing I said. That makes me feel good too, you know. And in relationship with like truth, like in comedy, like maybe I'm not as far along as you yet, but I like still have no problem. Like, this is for the sake of a joke. Like what I'm saying has no like truth to it whatsoever. But it's kind of a big question, like the what is truth thing too. And I think a lot of it comes back to what we were talking about earlier about like bettering yourself and self-care and all that stuff and improving for like no one's going to do it but you. Cause it's like, sorry, my mind's faster than my mouth.
No, you're fine. I actually was thinking about showing you that clip of Jordan's.
If you want,
this, I mean, it's like the only other like just single YouTube video with just like a speech that.
But if you don't want to waste airtime doing it, I can watch it after. You know,
I've actually kind of been wanting an excuse to play this clip on the podcast for a while.
When do we take calls?
One way of conceptualizing yourself is that you're one speck of dust among 7 billion. And when you conceptualize yourself that way, you might think, well, what difference does it make what I say or do? And that's actually quite convenient for you, because if it doesn't matter what you say or do, then you don't have any responsibility and you can do whatever you want. The price you pay for that is a bit of nihilism, but if you don't have to shoulder any responsibility, that's a small price to pay. That's the underground motivation for nihilism. But the other way of looking at it, and this is actually the accurate way of looking at it, is that you're in a network. You're a node in a network. And so you can do a little bit of arithmetic very rapidly and just figure out how powerful you are. You know 1,000 people. You're going to know more than that over the course of your life, but let's say 1,000 for the sake of argument for now. They know 1,000 people. That means that you're one person away from 1 million people and 2 persons away from 1 billion people. And you're the center of that network. And now the way networks work is that information propagates in a network manner. So don't underestimate the power of your speech. Now, you know, Western culture is phallogocentric. Let's say it. Okay, so we'll say, yeah, that's just fine. That's exactly what it is. It's predicated on the idea of the logos, that the logos is the sacred element of Western culture. And what does that mean? It means that your capacity for speech is divine. It's the thing that generates order from chaos and then sometimes turns pathological order into chaos when it has to. Don't underestimate the power of truth. There's nothing more powerful. Now, in order to speak what you might regard as the truth, you have to let go of the outcome. You have to think, all right, I'm going to say what I think, stupid as I am, biased as I am, ignorant as I am. I'm going to state what I think as clearly as I can, and I'm going to live with the consequences no matter what they are. Now, the reason you think that, that's an element of faith. The idea is that nothing brings a better world into being than the stated truth. Now, you might have to pay a price for that, but that's fine. You're going to pay a price for every bloody thing you do and everything you don't do. You don't get to choose to not pay a price. You get to choose which poison you're going to take. That's it. So if you're going to stand up for something, stand up for your truth. It'll shape you, because people will respond and object and tell you why you're a fool and a biased moron and why you're ignorant. And then if you listen to them, you'll be just that much less like that the next time you say something. And if you do that for 5 years, you'll be so damn tough and articulate and able to communicate and withstand pressure that you won't even recognize yourself. And then you'll be a force to contend with. And you don't get to wait until, because I get letters like Gad Saad gets all the time too, from faculty members in particular, and they say, well, you know, when I get tenure, it's like, then they think, well, when I'm an associate professor, and then they think, well, when I'm a full professor. It's like, if you're a professor already, you're like the most protected person in the history of the planet, you know, and you need, well, okay, but one of the things that indicates is that it's almost impossible to provide people with enough protection so that they feel safe to speak. Okay, so we'll address that directly. It is not safe to speak, and it never will be. But the thing you got to keep in mind is that it's even less safe not to speak. right? It's a balance of risks. It's like you want to pay the price for being who you are and stating your mode of being in the world, or do you want to pay the price for being a bloody serf, one that's enslaved him or herself? Well, that's a major price, man. That thing unfolds over decades, and you'll just be a miserable worm at the end of about 20 years of that, right? No self-respect, no power, no ability to voice your opinions, nothing left but resentment because everyone's against you, because of course you've never stood up for yourself. It's like, say what you think carefully, pay attention to your words. The price is, it's a price you want to pay if you are willing to believe that truth is the cornerstone of society. And in the most real sense, if you're willing to take that leap, then tell the truth and see what happens. And nothing better could possibly happen to you. There'll be ups and downs, and there'll be pushback, and there'll be controversy and all of that, but it doesn't matter. The truth is what makes the world, the truth is what redeems the world from hell, and that's the truth. And we saw plenty of hell over the last 100 years, you know, and we haven't learned a bloody thing from it. It's like, wake up, tell the truth, or at least don't lie. That's a start. And you got to understand that's a risk. But I have one more brief thing to say about that. So, you know, I said what I had to say back in September, and I'm sure that I could have done it better, and many people have told me how I could have done it better, although it didn't mean they would actually do it, but
Jordan.
And you know, my job was at risk, serious risk, for about 2 months, and it destabilized my family, who've been very brave about this. So, like, thumbs up to them, man. They've just stood by me. But here's the optimistic news: is the university has left me alone completely. I shook hands with the dean 2 weeks ago. We're on friendly terms. They don't want this to go any farther than it has already. The students were tremendously welcoming when I came back to teach in January. I haven't had a single negative incident at the university. And I've received thousands of letters from people all over the world, all of which have been in support. I've received 2 negative letters. That's it. 2. So the people have an inchoate longing to have the sort of thing that we're talking about articulated. And so don't be thinking you're alone. It's just that people can't talk, they're afraid to talk, or they don't know what to say. And those are real problems. So if you're reasonably articulate, like, start talking and sharpen yourself up. I mean, the enemy is a cloud. They're a cloud of gnats. They're only courageous in groups. They're only courageous in mobs. If you stand your ground and don't apologize and articulate things properly, they'll disperse around you like they're not even there. So most of it's illusion. So don't be afraid, but be afraid of the right thing. And the right thing you should be afraid of is not saying what you say, because that's the same as not being. And here you are, suffering away. You might as well be at the same time. At least then there's something to you.
I think I like that a little too much is the problem, because it's right, man. You could hear me on this podcast even. Like, I feel like, I mean, more than just me, but me too, have like trained myself into talking to people where I have these little prefixes and suffixes of like, and I could be wrong. You know what I mean? Like that. And it's like to what end? It's like, if I just say something like it's fact, like, oh, then you know, you're gonna get attacked or jumped, so I have to have all these buffer phrases that keep me protected from any kind of persecution, and it's exhausting, dude. It's sick, you know. Like,
this. I mean, it's a little. It's not unrelated, but it's off to the side, kind of around on that same note. Is like these filler words that are kind of like that. I'm trying to think of a good example so it doesn't sound like I'm just talking about the same. Like, if I were to, I don't, just asking a girl to do something, you know, you ask it rather than a direct, like, do you want to go tomorrow to do this? You know, rather than being
hey, we should hang out sometime.
Hey, we should hang out sometime. Maybe that would be cool if, you know, maybe like what? No. Just ask the thing. Just be direct.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I think trimming the fat off your communication is, and
it's like a part of it. It's hard too, and it's a practice like anything else. Because like I said, I try to be better, and because I want clarity, I don't want any miscommunication. You know what I mean? I don't want, oh, I thought you said that. I was like, I was very clear with what I said we were doing. There's a text that can prove. You know, I just probably the neurotic part. You know what I mean? I was just like, I just don't want to have to worry about this later.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I talked to a friend one time who, like, we got into a disagreement about, I mean, just like a healthy one, like, oh, we had two different points of view. And at the end of it, he said, oh, but I was just playing devil's advocate. I don't really feel that way. I was like, well, it's okay if you did, man. I learned a lot from what you had to say. That was kind of interesting too. I was like, well, I mean, do you really feel that way? And he goes, I don't really have an opinion. And I was like, wow, man, that might be the saddest thing I've ever heard in my entire life, that you don't have an opinion, you know? And I tried to like charge him a little bit and make him realize what he said, like confront him with what he just said. And he was like, that's heartbreaking to hear that you don't have an opinion, man. Really? You don't have an opinion? Like,
yeah. But I think to hone in to, just because I wanted to play that before we continued where we were, just like with the truth and humor thing, because this was, you know, no mention of humor.
Sure,
there.
right.
But like in that context of if it's for the sake of a joke, of course I'll say a thing that isn't true. And I think that's totally acceptable, especially like in the context of like doing comedy, or even if it's just like an off stage joke. You know, there's a way where it's like, one, it can still be considered the truth because it is true that I think this is funny and I want to share this. That's true. It's genuine. I think maybe a better way of saying it, truthful. And like, maybe the setup of it, you have to say something. It's not, oh, I went to the doctor's earlier today. He didn't go to the doctor's today, but it doesn't matter because it's for the setup. The lady at the front desk said, "Your whale cum." Like, what, a whale cum now? So it's like, okay, that's clearly a joke. Do we even care that he went to the doctor's office? Right, exactly. But on that same note of, even for the sake of comedy, particularly in the context of doing stand-up, like being able to fabricate things about you for the sake of that art form and a joke, I will say that I have found myself, even though I'm still fine with doing that, I found myself gravitating more towards like, if there's a way to take what's real and true for me and actually like make that my material, it seems to work better for me for a number of reasons. One, it seems to grip audience's attention more because they can tell that I'm telling the truth. So I have their attention more, and if I have their attention more, I'm more easily able to manipulate you know, the structure of a story or like the mood, because more people are like put, you know, full attention. And the other thing is that I don't have to work so hard to remember the bit. Like, it's like, oh, I'm just speaking a thing, like how it happened. The only thing is I have to think about what details are not contributing and like how to just say the bare minimum, but enough that it's artfully done and told in the best way possible so that the joke lands. Like, that's all that really matters in terms of what to filter out. But I think it's just that, and it feels more fulfilling when like, you know, it's one thing to construct a joke that is totally not rooted in reality. It's a completely made up scenario just to say a little funny thing. But it's also great. It just feels even better to do that when it's like, no, this is a real thing that happened to me. This is a thing that bothered me that happened to me 3 days ago, and I constructed that truth and then and made a joke out of it, and I'm now sharing it, and I'm able to tell it in this way. Like, they can tell I have this vigor where I'm sharing something real. They're paying attention, and that they're on the edge of their seats, like sharing a human experience. And I don't even have to make an effort to like write that out or think about it too much because it is real. It's just coming out naturally. So I have found that even in that context, like that is still like a super useful allocation of like paying attention to that value more deeply and like going down that path.
Well, I like what he had to say about it. It's like, it's nobody. It's a what is it? A cloud of gnats. They're only
the people that you're worried about. It's like when you share your truth that are going to come after you.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. But again, it's like everyone's just more concerned with having like that suit of armor of like, I didn't say anything wrong, and if I did, it was only because I was quoting someone. You know what I mean? It's like, it's okay to be wrong too, which is like what people aren't okay with. It's like, it's okay. I probably said wrong shit on here today. You know what I mean? But it's like,
that fucking micro expression. There's the two things I really felt like were the most powerful lines of that video for me that stuck with me, that hit me when I heard it, and the first time, and still to this day, like, just I feel like are so valuable, is the whole thing about you don't get to pick not to suffer, or that it's like, it's dangerous to speak, but it's even more dangerous not to speak.
Yes, true.
You have to. You don't get to choose not to pay a price. That's what it was. You have to pick your poison. It's like, are you gonna pick the poison of standing up for who you are in this world, or are you gonna pay the price of being a bloody serf? And like, that was me of like, holy fuck, like, no, I don't want 5 years later to be this person that's afraid to say what I think, even as wrong and ignorant and biased as I am. And then the last thing he says, where I think really drives that point, is like he says in the last sentence of that video, is like, not speaking your truth is the same as not being.
Yeah.
And
that's it really
I know what you mean. You're just off to the sidelines, and you're not engaging with the one chance you have in your existence.
That's true. Especially like in your own life. You don't want to be on the sideline of your own life either. You know what I mean? Like, but again, it's hard. Like, he makes it sound so I feel like he's what I needed though when I read it, because again, I don't like we were talking about, like, we loved Danny McBride when we were younger. We love this, like, back at like teenage years, it's a lot easier to be like, everything he says is perfect, you know, but when you get older, you're like, oh shit, he says wrong shit I don't like too, you know what I mean? And like we said at the beginning, you have to pick and choose what's worth like listening to. But it's just like his energy I like too, because it's like, talk about, I don't have a principal to yell at me, I don't have anyone, but I still feel like you're in trouble. I was like, I think I inserted Jordan in there to yell at me a little bit, because I feel like I needed it a little bit. Like, why'd you leave the door open? I was like, I don't know, man, I just left it. You understand animals and bugs can get in here and it's a waste of electricity, right? It's like, yeah, I guess I knew that, but I just left it. It's like, well, close. It's like, that's, you know what I mean? Just simple shit. I almost have like an imaginary Jordan in my head too. Like, what? You've been sitting here saying you need to get some water for 15 minutes. Go get some fucking water, you know, and come back to your seat. Like, I also think he's like a polite, I mean, he's not polite, like the whole thing about Canadians, I'm sorry, like polite. It's like he has the different take on it than I've ever seen, because he's yelling at you. He's like, I'm sorry, but, you know, like it's the different, I'm sorry.
And I also feel like a lot of the good that he does is probably for people like me that really didn't have a dad growing up. And in part, like, almost largely grateful for the chain of events there, in terms of like not having that void empty for so long, and having him be the thing that fills it. Because it's like, if you can pick a person to put in that void, like that's a pretty damn good like balanced thing, because he's not just like this, it's not just the hard tough love father figure, you know. It's like, it's actually like a really complicated and nuanced like worldview, and that gives you both like the tough dad, but also like the kind of more intellectual and softer like explanation behind it, where it's not just like, because a lot of like what he's saying is like, it is tough love, but what's so confusing about tough love is that you just experience the toughness, and that all that you get out of that is kind of, it's all unconscious, and you don't understand it, so you might resist it a lot more if it's just like, well, my dad's mean to me, I don't, and you might be more inclined to rebel against like what is trying to be accomplished with the tough love, and just completely go the opposite direction, where it's like, no, I'm going to do the tough love thing to you, but I'm also going to explain to you just textually long-winded reasons for why you need this and why it's good for you, and it would be in your best interest to implement this in your life.
I think you like pretty much like came to a similar conclusion I had too, because like I grew up with, for the most part, like a because I said so dad. You know, I'm the dad, that's because I said so, you know. And I've always thought like, man, if I had a kid, I'll do my best to explain to him why I'm making these choices, but if at that point they still don't like understand or go with it, well then, because I said so at that point, you know what I mean? And like a good example of that is like being a kid. It's like, you gotta go to school, or sorry.
What the fuck?
I'm a terrible guest. I got other apologies too. I forgot. I just remembered I want to apologize before the end. But I don't know. Should back up a little bit. I had like a because I said so dad, you know, and then it's like, I always said if I had a kid, it's like, I would love to not just be a because I said so dad, but I can also understand that a kid won't understand everything I will and the thoughts that went into deciding it. So it's like, okay, I'll do my best to explain to you, like you said, a long list of reason and rationale, but if at that point you still don't get it, then it's because I said so. And that's where we're left with, you know? Because like when I was a kid, I would like, oh, I can't miss school or my parents will get mad. You know what I mean? And it wasn't until like high school where I was like, oh, there was a reason for that. That's like a stand-in for real reasons. It's like, why do I have to do this? Because I said, you know, because like, you know, like, because an adult told me I had to, but then it's not until you're smart enough to piece it together on your own. Like, oh, that's why I wasn't allowed to stay up till 4 a.m. and eat pizza every day. You know what I mean? Like, you're not smart enough to come to that conclusion on your own yet. So you need like a real tangible, like, this is the reason. And I can show you like a strict parent, you know? But yeah, no, he just has a way of explaining stuff. And there was plenty I glossed over where like he'll just give like a big historical lesson. And I'm like, can we just get to like the meat of this? I don't want to skip any words or anything. And I think I'd benefit from rereads down the road too. But at first I was like, there were plenty like I hear from him that I'm like, this is really going to help me. You know what I mean? Like, I want to say something else about Jordan. You have to listen to Jordan from start to finish, though, too, because he always sets you up with, like, this is like the joke we've done about him forever of him being like, I don't know, for example, Cameron, you can't just sit there doing your podcast all day. Oh, sure, you can sit around doing your podcast all day, but he, like, always negates what he said. But you won't like the outcome, I'll tell you. You know, like, so anytime I do a Jordan Peterson impression, it's like, you can't just eat raw meat. Oh, sure, you can just eat raw meat, but like, so just say one thing, immediately negate it.
Yeah,
That's my Jordan impression. Ooh.
Well, do you have any other things that you want to visit?
Cameron, I came here, hat in my hand, ready to apologize to you today for something that happened in childhood. I wanted it on Cameron.
Oh, you want it on Cameron? Do you want to apologize for that?
Start the whole podcast over. One time I opened a pack of Little Bites muffins. When we were kids, you know, remember we were teenagers, I was sitting in your bedroom while you were editing and I was eating chicken wings from Walmart. Mm-hmm. And you had your little waste paper bin for, you know, trash, for bedroom trash. And right in front of you, I finished a chicken wing and I threw it away in the garbage can. And you looked at it and looked at me and said, was that a chicken wing? And I said, yes. And you said, that's not a food trash can. And I'm not sorry that I did it, dude. I'm sorry that I knew better. Like, I knew better in the moment. It wasn't an accident. I knew what I was doing was wrong. And that's why I feel like this is a real apology, because I am sorry. I shouldn't. I mean, you don't put food, like, that's your bedroom. You know what I mean? What, you can have a chicken wing sitting in there for 4 days until you throw it out? That's an obnoxious thing for a so-called friend to do. So, sorry about that.
I accept this apology.
Okay, good.
And I'm glad that this is something I've been thinking about for my whole entire life.
You probably don't remember it at all, dude.
I don't.
Yeah, because it's a minor thing.
I mean, it seems real. It seems like, that could definitely be me. Yeah. I'm sure I probably was sassy about it.
Yeah. No, you weren't. That's the funny thing is, like, even in the time where you would, like, lash out and stuff, you just very calmly or like, that's not a food trash can. And I know it's not. I don't know why I did it either. And I took it out and I threw it away where it belonged. But I just still, that's one of those things that you just think about from time to time. Like, why did I do that? Yeah. Like, I know better than that. Like, I'm not a stupid man.
I think that's
like,
the thing. That,
I know where food goes.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's...
can I get away with this? Maybe I don't
perplexing me the most about it is that you claim to have known. And like, but you did it anyway.
I did do it anyway. And like, I still think about it. Another time was on your way to your house. Like, I used to, like, this could be a stand-up bit, but I joke around. It's like, what do you think's the worst thing you've ever done? And I just mean, like, what do you feel the worst about personally? Because you've probably done shit and been like, I don't even really care. I was driving to your house one day and a guy was just jogging and it was kind of dusk, like getting to be a little later, and I had my lights on, but I just turned my high beams on for just to give him a lighter breath. All within a second, I was like driving, high beams right back off, and just like, why did I do that? Like, what was to gain? What enjoyment did I get out of giving him, oh, that's a little too bright. You know what I mean? Like,
you just got a little
this was
Machiavellian.
over 10 years ago, and I still think about like shit like that. I was like, why did I do that to that guy? Like,
you just got a little tinge of sadism.
You know, but I mean, I'm not the only one. And I still think about this. You told me about flipping off people while you drive where they can't see. You're like, sometimes I put my middle finger up to the door where no one can see it, but I know it, and I know I'm flipping everybody off, and I'm like, that's a cruel guy right there who would do that.
Yeah.
Condemn all these people driving to a fuck you of a day. Like,
might be the most ruthless thing anyone's ever done.
Yeah. So how do you feel about this overall?
Oh, it was a good one.
I think it's fun. I'll come back. I'll do it better.
Yeah. Have you on again. I'd love to.
Yeah, sure. I'll have more to talk about. I'll see how much I've grown.
Next time you'll be a big boy.
Do you know what number I'm going to be? Because I want it to be said out loud, so in case you're wrong, someone can just look down at the title and be like, oh, he guessed wrong.
You're going to be 12 unless one of the previous two, one or both of the previous two asked me to not air their episode.
Okay.
Which,
you think it's likely? I'm okay with this one. I'm going to say on air it.
I don't...
I'd love to be number 11. I love that number.
10 we're having a conversation about it.
Okay.
11 might ask me, but I doubt it.
All right. Huh. Well, good. We can start doing group ones. You start doing weird combos of people who haven't met. You know, like,
yeah.
Just kidding.
Well, Kenny, thank you very much.
Yeah, should we do an on-camera handshake?
All right, brother.
Should we do our oh no, where's the camera?
Oh yeah,
I didn't look at that camera one time, so I'm gonna get a few looks in just so you can splice them in throughout.
All right, so just so people know what we're doing, because I'm going to leave this in here.
Yeah,
we're going to you got to look into that camera. I got to look into.
Oh, I look into this one.
Yeah. Okay. And so I would say roughly hold your hand up. Like, what are we going to do it like this?
I just I mean, you get the idea. It doesn't really matter. Yeah.
I don't know if it's even.
We can do both. We can do both.
I don't know if it's going to be able to see our hand the way I crop these anyway. All right. So.
I'll do a few. I'll just do some points too. What are some of the things we talked about?
Point, yeah, let's do it like this. Yeah. Just point to it. Wait, let me try the other hand.
Oh, okay. Can this just this part be a chapter at the end called Kenny and Cameron do funny points and faces? Goodbye.
Do this one. The audio people are going to be really confused about what we're doing.
Who's the audio people? You?
No, I just mean like the people that
people who listening
right.
and not
watching.
I don't know how far you are. Yeah, I guess I'm like I haven't developed object permanence yet. I'm like a child, and I think what I see, everyone sees. So like, it's been a bit of a hurdle.
Well, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Cameron. I love you, brother. I'll see you next time.
I love you too, dude. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Creativity Theory Podcast.